This lovely manhwa is titled The Reason the Villainess Took Up the Sword. If you love stories like this, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next episode. Everyone in the ballroom that night turned in surprise the moment Erin Lysus made her entrance. Murmurs spread quickly through the crowd as people leaned closer to one another, whispering in low voices. They gossiped about how she had actually shown up to the ball after everyone found out that she bullied her maids so badly that they ran away in the middle of the night. Many shook their heads in quiet judgment, while others pitied the second prince who had been forced into an engagement with her. Hearing all the cruel talk around her, Erin clenched her dress tightly in her hands, her fingers trembling as she struggled to keep her emotions under control. You must be wondering how everything got to this point. Well, Erin Lysus was known to the public as a notorious villainess. She was the eldest daughter of a marquise family, someone believed to indulge in cruelty and luxury. But the truth was very different. Erin was a victim. As a child, her stepmother maltreated her under the excuse of teaching her how to be a proper lady. "You're really useless," her stepmother would say, a cane always in her hand whenever Erin fell short while learning. Erin had many bruises all over her body, all in the name of perfect posture and a noble expression meant to please her father. She was treated so badly that she had no choice but to learn and become whatever they wanted her to be or look like. No one knew what went on behind closed doors since she was young. At some point, Erin began to wonder if everything happened because she was dull and pathetic, just like her stepmother always said. As she grew older, one day a servant called out to her lady, pleading with her to at least report to the marquis what Madame had been doing to her. But Erin couldn't protect anyone, not even the maids who stayed by her side. Her fiancé, who was forced to marry her, was kind to her, making her wonder why. Even so, till the very end, he cared for her, and because of her, he also died. Everyone pointed their fingers at Erin, blaming her for the second prince's death and for everyone else who died around her. "It's all your fault. They died because they stayed by your side." These were the words she kept hearing, words that made her believe she was truly worthless. She began to believe that it was all because of her. In the end, her stepmother sent someone to kill her and passed along a message that her family would soon join her. That was how Erin died. But Erin's life did not end there. She was reincarnated into the modern era in South Korea, carrying the memories of her past life as Erin Lysus. She worked in a cafe, and Second Life, as expected, was supposed to be better, but it was not different from her past. Her parents found her bothersome and mostly left her alone, and she in turn kept her distance from them. She was reincarnated again for the third time, her memories still intact. This time, she was reborn into a knight's family. She lived as a genius swordsman and reached the rank of swordmaster, yet she still did not understand why her life kept repeating. All she knew was that no matter how she died, she was always reborn with the memories of her past lives. But this time was different. A knight fighting monsters was almost killed when Erin suddenly appeared. She slayed the bear fearlessly and ordered the knight to go help the others. Erin Lysus, the foolish girl who once couldn't protect anyone, who was abused by her stepmother and murdered in her first life, had now returned with the memories of a swordmaster. She did not know why she had returned again as Erin Lysus, but this time she was determined to not live like the pathetic girl she once was. At Athens Academy, the only academy in the empire attended by commoners, nobles, royalty from other nations, and even the imperial family, a truly elite institution, Erin arrived in her carriage and stepped out confidently. As she looked at the academy building, she thought to herself, finally, realizing that she had truly returned. A few days ago, she had returned to the past. At first, she did not realize she had returned as Erin Lysus. When she looked around, monsters were attacking, and Sarah asked her to hide behind her. Erin wondered why Sarah was there. Not only Sarah, but her lady addressed her as Lady Erin. Based on everything happening around her, she knew something strange had happened. That was when she realized she had returned as 20-year-old Erin Lysus. Now, back to the present. The other students began gossiping the moment they saw her arrive at the academy. They whispered about her extravagant carriage and how she was dressed as if she were attending a ball. They added that they were sure she had come only because of the second prince and hoped they wouldn't be in the same class as her. Sarah, hearing the gossip, asked sadly if Erin was going to be all right. Erin already knew people had always disliked her, but this time, the academy students seemed to despise her even more. The first reason was that she, who had always been known as someone who knew nothing about the sword, had been transferred to the night division. The second reason was her engagement to the second prince, Ferdinando. The engagement was not her choice, but everyone believed she had threatened to kill herself if she was not engaged to Ferdinando. They disliked her even more for stealing Lady Ashley's lover and labeled her a villainess. She stained the honor of the knights, shattered the bond between two lovers, and seized the title of the second prince's fiancé. Of course they would hate her, Erin thought. Erin told Sarah not to worry about her and to return to the Marquis's estate. Sarah was worried and asked if she would really be all right on her own. Erin grabbed her hands and told her she would be fine and that she should head back. That was how Erin parted ways with her caring maid, Sarah. All the rumors people believed about her were fabricated by her stepmother, but Erin felt there was no need to reveal the truth to anyone. She already knew what would happen to the people she loved if she dared to speak up. That was why she had to handle everything on her own. This was her burden to bear. Erin changed out of her dress and into the academy's uniform. As she did, she thought to herself that it had been a long time. She carefully wrapped the wounds on her body because her stepmother had whipped her right up until the moment she left for the academy. The faint aches spreading across her body were proof of it, all the handiwork of Corellia, her stepmother. As she put on her coat, Erin wondered why Corellia whipped her so viciously when she had already planned to kill her. She remembered the words of the assassin who had taken her life. "Madam said not to worry. Your family will soon be joining you." Those words continued to trouble her. Erin's family had a long and proud history of producing knights for the Empire. Her father never became a swordmaster, but he was a high-ranking knight. Her younger brother, Karen, was learning swordsmanship to carry on the family legacy. Yet Erin had died, and that same family had been pushed to the brink of ruin all because of a single person. Back then, Erin did not understand it, but now she believed someone must have been backing her stepmother. What confused her most was who that person could be. Just then, Erin remembered that someone was supposed to meet her. She knew it was her younger brother, Karen. As expected, he was already there. "Are you out of your mind?" he yelled, asking why she had joined the night division when she could barely move without a carriage. How was she supposed to train like that? Erin walked past him, thinking to herself that his temper had not changed at all. It was the same argument as before. When she reached the door, she turned around knowing he would stop her, and of course he did. He grabbed her hand tightly. "Everyone already hates you," he shouted angrily. "Did you really have to transfer to the night division and make everything worse?" Erin thought to herself that Karen had every right to be angry. He had always been a student in the swordsmanship department, someone who dreamed of becoming a knight. Of course, he must have felt insulted by her presence, and at the moment, he was probably embarrassed that she was here. Back then, Erin had been shocked when her brother told her to her face that he was embarrassed by her. But right now, she was only confused, wondering how things had ended up like this. As children, Karen and Erin were very close and loved each other deeply. He used to follow her around everywhere, but now he did not even want her near him. Seeing her stay quiet, Karen grew confused. "I don't know what you're thinking, but you can't meet the second prince like this, no matter how hard you try." His words left her confused. "The second prince?" Erin asked. Karen replied that the second prince was the reason she was here in the first place, so there was no way they would meet since they were in different classes. He explained that everyone was gathered today for the swordsmanship evaluation, but that it was only for today. "So give up and go back to your original class," he advised. As Karen spoke, he suddenly grabbed her hand after noticing the wound on it. Erin immediately pulled away, leaving him shocked. He asked why she hadn't said she was hurt. Erin did not say a single word. Instead, she turned away and asked calmly if he was done talking and if she could leave. Karen was stunned. Erin reminded him that she had class to attend, and with that, she walked away, leaving Karen standing there, completely confused. The swordsmanship department of Athens Academy was a place many people called the Empire's last stronghold. It's where knights were trained to defend the front lines from the ever-growing threat of monsters. The advanced class was even dispatched to subjugate monsters, and Ferdinando had been sent on a mission by order of the emperor. The moment Erin opened the door to her class and stepped inside, everyone turned to look at her. Whispers filled the room as students talked about how shameless she was to actually show up. They wondered how she would even be able to hold a sword with that arm. Erin's eyes widened in shock when she saw Ferdinando sitting by the window. He was someone who had never returned before she died, the one who always worried whether she had eaten, the one she thought she would never see again. "He's alive," Erin said softly, as relief washed over her as their eyes met. One of the boys, Derek Adelon, complained about Duke Lysus's demands being ridiculous. Duke Lysus was one of the families that protected the front lines during monster blockades. Although he had never become a sword master, his abilities from protecting the front lines for so long were worthy of praise. Recently, however, he had made a big mistake, and as if that wasn't enough, he used his prestige to get his daughter into the swordsmanship department and even pushed for an engagement with the second prince of the empire. Thinking about all this, Derek was furious, but the one who got engaged to the villainess seemed so carefree. "Ferdin, this is truly unbelievable. Didn't you hear the Duchess crying as she spoke?" Derek asked. They remembered Corellia crying, saying that her daughter Erin had threatened to kill herself if she couldn't get engaged to the second prince. They believed Erin had used blackmail to get whatever she wanted and thought she could manipulate her way into becoming the second prince's fiancé. Ferdin did not say a word. Even as Derek ranted, he just sat there reading his book. "Ferdin, I don't want you to die," Derek said, his voice tinged with sadness. "There's no way the throne is coming to you, since the Emperor favors the first prince. You must build your strength even more. What we need right now is a knight who can be a source of strength. Although Karen's talent is excellent, Duke Ashili is the strongest sword master in the Empire, and now his daughter..." Derek noticed that Ferdin wasn't paying attention to a single word he was saying and yelled, "I'm talking to you!" But Ferdin kept getting distracted. Derek wondered what on earth could he be looking at. He turned and was shocked to see Erin at the door. His expression immediately grew angry. Ferdin got up and told Derek he didn't believe in rumors. He approached Erin. Watching him come closer, both Derek and Ferdin remembered the night at the ball during their engagement and how he had approached her the same way. Ferdin only believed in what he saw with his own eyes. "It's been a while. This is the first time we've met since the engagement," he said, smiling. Erin stood there frozen in shock. Her heart stirred. Even after living through multiple lives, he was the only one she could never forget. She wondered what she should say to him. Was she even allowed to speak to him? All she remembered was the second prince dying because of her. Erin stood speechless for a moment, then turned away and left without saying a word. The swordsmanship students were then welcomed to the training ground for their swordsmanship evaluation. Edward Floan introduced himself as the instructor in charge of the beginners class. According to academy rules, on the first day, beginners watched the advanced class perform, so Edward urged them to observe carefully. Erin stood at the back, thinking to herself, a swordsmanship evaluation. She remembered how embarrassing it had been in the past, when everyone laughed at her because she couldn't even hold a sword. She sighed at the memory, but did not stop. She wanted to learn swordsmanship at all costs. Ever since she was little, she had always wanted to learn. She watched her brother train, but her stepmother would always interrupt, saying that women should not learn swordsmanship. At first, when she was transferred to the academy, she had been overjoyed, but that joy had not lasted long because of Philip. Today, the same Philip was standing beside her, glaring. Erin spoke up. "Do you think glaring at me like that will change anything, Philip?" Erin asked. Philip replied sternly, asking her not to casually say his name, even though regulations allowed it. "I'm royalty of the kingdom of Edwin, and you're a noble of the empire." Erin thought to herself that he must really hate having her say his name. The first emperor of Lexia had established a rule within the academy that aside from royalty, one's social status should not be considered. In other words, it meant that royalty and commoners could speak freely and comfortably without issue. Philip glared at Erin and told her that she would soon see how much disgrace becoming a knight would bring her. "How much disgrace you'll suffer," he said coldly. "Even if you say that, I'm not afraid, Philip," Erin replied fearlessly, leaving him furious. Just as Philip was about to confront her, Edward announced loudly that the swordsmanship evaluation would begin and that everyone should step forward. Erin stepped forward and told Philip to watch carefully and decide for himself whether she was truly a knight or not. Erin walked to the front while everyone watched her closely. She quietly picked up a sword, and the moment she lifted it, her hand trembled. She thought to herself that it was quite heavy, just as she had expected. With her current physical condition, even lifting it caused her hand to shake. Philip immediately shouted from the crowd, mocking her trembling hands. Erin glared at him and stepped forward, gripping the sword firmly. It was believed that every person possessed mana in their lower abdomen, known as the danjin. Erin also had mana, about the same amount as an ordinary person. The difference between her and others was that she had once lived as a sword master, so she knew how to control and wield mana. Philip was shocked when he saw her actually wielding the sword. The trembling stopped. He gritted his teeth angrily, wondering how such a thing was possible. A long time ago, her father had called Erin and Karen and spoken to them about their family's lineage. In our family, there is a legacy passed down for generations, he had said. Every 2 or 3 generations, a descendant is born with the qualities of a master. If I never become a sword master, then one of you will possess that talent. Now, her father had never become a sword master, and neither had Karen. That meant the chosen one was Erin. She realized it as she wielded the sword with passion and completed her evaluation. Meanwhile, on the other side of the academy, Karen was training aggressively on the grounds, his shirt discarded. He suddenly remembered how his sister had coldly walked away earlier, saying she had class. He clenched his teeth, thinking that he was worried about her, yet she had the nerve to brush him aside. All he had done was ask about her wounds and whether she had been hurt on the way here. Karen sighed and looked up at the sky, wondering if the swordsmanship evaluation was over by now. Just then, he overheard some students talking about Erin Lysus. He turned around and heard one of them say, "I heard it from the advanced class that just finished their swordsmanship evaluation. Apparently, Erin Lysus..." Before the student could finish, Karen tapped him on the shoulder from behind, scaring him badly. "That story," Karen said with a dark and frightening expression, "let me hear it too." Edward congratulated everyone for a job well done, and the class was dismissed. As Erin was leaving, Philip suddenly called out to her loudly. He immediately bowed deeply, apologizing for looking down on her. Erin was surprised. She quickly asked him to lift his head because everyone was watching, but he refused, saying he was ashamed of what he had done. "The way you wielded your blade was more knightly than anyone else," Philip said sincerely. "The one who failed to act like a true knight was me. I let blind prejudice cloud my judgment. I have finally realized how meaningless rumors truly are." He asked her lady to please accept his apology and said that he wished for them to get along from now on. Erin was too shocked to speak at first, but then she realized that it made sense. Things had changed from how they used to be. Even the way some of the students looked at her had changed. It was different from before. If that was the case, then Ferdinando's fate would change too, right? She thought this as she looked in Ferdinando's direction, and he was looking at her as well. Erin clenched her fist and said that she accepted Philip's apology. She then turned away, saying she had things to do and would take her leave. Erin walked up to Ferdinando, and he turned toward her. Looking at him confidently, she told him that she wanted to speak with him in private and asked if he could spare her a moment. The two of them went to a quiet place inside the building. Erin thanked him for making time to speak with her. She looked away and said that the reason she asked to see him was because, before she could continue, he told her that he had all the time she needed. That response surprised her. Ferdinando gently took her hand and noticed the bandage stained with blood. Without a word, he wrapped it carefully with his handkerchief and told her to visit the infirmary once they were done talking. Erin watched him as he carefully tied the handkerchief around her wounded hand, and her heart softened. She thought to herself that Ferdinando is kind to everyone, fair to all, and blessed with a gentle and compassionate nature. That must be why he treated her so well too, even though he must resent being forced into an engagement with her. "Sir Ferdinando, you've received orders from the Emperor to subjugate the monsters, right?" Erin asked. Ferdinando was shocked and asked how she knew. Did Karen tell her? Erin looked down and said that she was also listed on the subjugation team roster. She explained that the reason she called him there was to tell him to do nothing for her sake. Ferdinando was taken aback by her words. Meanwhile, in Ferdinando's office, Derek asked the others if they had received the roster for the monster subjugation team. "You all know that monster subjugation is one of the regular events held by our academy. The roster was usually chosen from the top 5 students in each class of the swordsmanship and magic faculties. The team was formed alongside senior knights with real field experience, and for this mission, they had been chosen to participate alongside Ferdinando and Derek." The boys looked at Derek strangely as he announced this. Amon Hedor of the Swordsmanship class, Advanced class, and Lilia of the Magic class, Advanced class, were among those selected. Amon asked Derek why he was speaking as if he were the leader instead of Ferdinando. Derek immediately shouted that it was not like that. "I was just making the announcement before Ferdinando arrived," Derek said, clearing his throat. Amon coldly remarked that Derek's devotion to the young lord was impressive. Derek glared at him and replied that he preferred to call it loyalty, not devotion. On the other hand, Karen was deep in thought about what happened earlier. He still found it hard to believe. The students who had been talking about his sister told him that Erin had executed the Lysus-style sword form flawlessly. He was so shocked that he thought they must be mistaken. Erin had never formally learned swordsmanship, so how could she have mastered their family form? When they were younger, Karen had caught her secretly watching his training and copying his movements, but she had given that up long ago. So how could she have performed so well now? Amon suddenly spoke up after noticing something on the list. "There's an unexpected name here," he said. "Erin Lysus." Karen was shocked once again. "The Marquis would surely be pleased to see siblings standing by side in such a prestigious monster subjugation," Eamon added. Karen shouted angrily that his sister's participation was absurd. She had only recently transferred to the swordsmanship faculty, and these subjugations were meant only for the top scorers. Eamon stayed quiet for a moment, then turned to Derek and asked what he thought of Erin, since he had been in the class earlier that day. Derek shouted that Eamon should have been there himself. He then cleared his throat and admitted that he never thought he would say this, but her sword form had been flawless. Karen was shocked once again. He clenched his fist and said that no matter how good she was, he still refused to let his sister take part in the monster subjugation. Derek stared at him with his arms folded, wondering what was wrong with him all of a sudden. They never seemed to care about each other in public before, so this reaction was strange. Lilia, who had been standing quietly in a corner, suddenly burst into laughter. "What a touching show of sibling affection," she said mockingly. Everyone turned to look at her. She continued fiercely, "I had a brother like that once, but now I'll never see him again." Lilia walked closer to Karen, her expression dangerously cold, and said it was because of his sister. "That's strange. What did she mean? What happened, and how was it because of his sister?" "That's enough, Corellia. That's just a rumor," Karen said sharply, defending Erin with an intense gaze. Lilia smiled and asked if he had just called it a rumor. She questioned whether he was truly saying that the story about his sister killing her brother was only a rumor. If it really was a rumor, then why did everyone believe it to be true? Her voice rose as she shouted. The room fell silent as everyone watched the confrontation. Lilia tapped Karen on the shoulder and said she did not care whether his sister joined the monster hunt or not, but if she comes with us, don't expect any cooperation from me, she said coldly, a smirk on her lips. It takes a great deal of effort to make sure my magic doesn't accidentally hit her. Just then, the door opened. Everyone turned to see Ferdinando walk in, his expression troubled. Derek commented that he had arrived sooner than expected, but Ferdinando said nothing. He removed his coat and sat down on the sofa in silence. Seeing this, Derek assumed that Erin Lysus must have caused some trouble. He decided to ask what Erin had said. Ferdinando suddenly remembered their conversation. He sighed deeply and told the group that it seemed Erin Lysus would be joining the monster subjugation hunt. Everyone was left in shock. When Erin got to her room, she sat on the bed tiredly and mumbled that she was exhausted, even though she had not done anything yet. She thought to herself that in her past life and in this one, it was a foregone conclusion that she would take part in the monster hunt because it was an imperial decree. In her past life, the Emperor had made it mandatory for her to participate since the Lysus family had gone out of their way to transfer her into the swordsmanship department. Ferdinando had tried to protest to the Emperor, but he was ignored. In the end, the hunting party, including Erin, set off. During that hunt, Karen lost an arm, and Ferdinando lost his former lover, Princess Ashili, because he chose to save Erin instead of Ashili. Because of that choice, Ferdinando had to face the wrath of Duke Ashili, and his position began to weaken in earnest. But in this life, none of that would happen, Erin thought firmly to herself. The hunting party would depart in 1 month, and until then, Erin decided to increase her stamina and strengthen her mana core as much as possible. Just then, the door opened aggressively. When Erin turned around, she saw Karen. "You!" he shouted angrily. His eyes suddenly landed on the blood seeping through the bandage on her hand. He clenched his teeth and yelled, asking why her hand was worse than before and why she was going on the monster hunt. He shouted about whether she had gone crazy and demanded to know why she had used the family swordsmanship technique during the swordsmanship evaluation. All of this played out in Karen's imagination. He could not bring himself to say any of it out loud, so he forced himself to calm down, leaving Erin confused about what was wrong. Karen finally told her that he had heard she was participating in the monster hunt and asked if she even understood what that meant. She could actually die. Erin stood up and told him calmly that she knew. It was an imperial decree, and it was not something their father or Ferdinando could stop. She walked toward the door, telling him she was going to leave. "How can you be so calm about this?" Karen asked. He added, asking if she even knew what a monster hunt truly meant. "Lilia is aiming at you to get revenge for her brother, and not only that, you'll be with people who don't think highly of you, and you still want to go?" he shouted. Karen was so annoying. Didn't he understand that it was a royal decree and not something Erin could refuse? After a long moment of silence, Erin told him that she knew everything. Karen was left completely shocked. 1 month later, it was the departure day for the monster hunt. Everyone got ready with their horses. As Erin prepared, she thought to herself about Corellia's brother. He had once been her attendant, but it was not long before he died. At the sight of her brother's body, a furious Lilia devoted herself fully to magic training in order to avenge him. Just as Erin was about to climb onto her horse, she noticed Lilia standing behind her. The team began their journey as the sun slowly started to set. From behind, Derek watched Erin and Karen. He thought to himself that their combination was strange. It was already weird enough that they were close at all. Karen kept bothering his sister, asking if she was not sore at all. He demanded to know since when she had learned how to ride a horse and questioned what she had been doing behind his back, yelling as usual. Derek knew he could not ignore Lilia's silence. He knew exactly what her smiles meant. He had thought something would happen just before they departed, especially because of how Lilia had stood behind Erin. Thankfully, she stepped back at the last moment. On top of that, Lady Ashili was also coming along. "This is turning into some kind of soap opera," Derek sighed. He told Ferdinando, who was riding beside him, that he was sure this monster subjugation mission would not be easy and that he was concerned. He told Ferdinando that once the subjugation was over, he really needed to seriously think about his engagement. Those who are loyal to him would officially become his knights, and by then, the first prince would have already built his own forces to oppose him. With the emperor backing the prince, it would be a disadvantage to keep Erin Lysus by his side. Ferdinando would be forced to spend his time stopping internal division instead of fighting. Ferdinando remained quiet. When he finally spoke, he asked if Derek had actually seen Erin Lysus cause trouble. Derek was about to say of course, but suddenly remembered that it was all just rumors. He had heard things from one person or another, but none of them had actually seen her do any of the things people claimed. His expression darkened as he told Derek that he had not seen it himself. One of the knights announced that there was a clearing ahead and that they would make camp there for the night. Everyone stopped and followed the order. Erin got down from her horse and watched as the sun started to set. Ferdinando asked Derek quietly if the so-called rumors turned out to be lies, who would compensate for that? Derek sighed and said that was too big of a leap. He also warned him not to say things like that in front of Lilia, since everyone knew she disliked Erin more than anything. Erin took charge of preparing her meal. Karen was surprised at her. He had not known she could cook, since all she had ever done was attend lady etiquette lessons. Erin handed Karen a portion of her food, and when he tasted it, he was shocked that it actually tasted good. He looked at his sister and thought to himself that she had changed so much that he no longer understood her. The sister he knew as a child had been like a flower, and no one disliked flowers. He never once thought he would grow to dislike her. Everything changed a few years later when their stepmother entered their lives. Erin began spending time with her. Whenever Karen tried to follow or ask for her attention, she would push him away. That was how they slowly grew apart. He kept trying to get close to her, but she remained distant. He cried often because of it. One day, their stepmother saw him crying and asked why. He told her how his sister had changed so much that even the servants were speaking badly about her. Their stepmother hugged him and said Erin was just having a change of heart and was keeping her distance for now, but she would soon return to her old self. Until then, she said she would cherish Erin in her own way. There was nothing Karen could do. Karen and Erin sat together and ate their meal. Suddenly, Karen spoke sadly and asked how life in the swordsmanship faculty had been. Erin replied that it had been fine. He asked if she had any trouble with her classes, and she told him not really. They both went quiet for a moment. Erin suddenly smiled. Karen turned to her and asked why she was smiling. She replied, "I was just thinking about how long it's been since we sat like this, and how strange it feels for you to call me sis." Karen remembered how his sister used to smile when they were children. He turned away, acting grumpy, and said, "It was no big deal. I was just calling her what she was." Just then, Eamon approached them with an apple in his hand. He commented that the food seemed to be going down well. Then he added sharply, "Laughing so casually in front of the one who tried to kill you, Lilia?" He asked Erin if she was oblivious or if she simply did not care. Karen stood up immediately and asked Eamon if he was trying to pick a fight. "They say you shouldn't bother even a dog when it's eating," Karen said fiercely, asking if he thought he was worse than a dog. Eamon pulled back angrily and told him that was enough. He slowly drew his sword, but at that moment, Ferdin appeared and told him to stop with a cold expression. "Ferdin, you're not taking sides with that woman right now, are you?" Eamon asked in surprise. Erin thought to herself that this was not good at all. Everyone was already watching them, and if Sir Ferdin was seen defending her in public, it would only make her situation worse. So she had to step forward and confront Eamon herself. "I heard Sir Eamon is a genius swordsman," Erin said calmly, but sharply. "Was that just an empty rumor? Because all I see is a sharp tongue." Eamon's anger grew even stronger. He asked if she had a death wish. With an intense gaze, he told her that if that was what she wanted, he could kill her right now. "That's not allowed," a voice said from behind. They all turned and saw Ashili. She reminded them that duels were not allowed. Lady Ashili had blonde hair and blue eyes, looking pure, just like her divine power. Everyone was surprised to see her come out. It was also Erin's first time seeing her in person. Erin thought to herself that Ashili was loved by everyone, yet often sick because her divine power overflowed. Still, she never missed monster subjugations. She was Sir Ferdin's lover, and everyone agreed that they suited each other well. She was the saintess of the Lexia Empire, Lady Ashili. Derek asked her why she came out in such cold weather. Ashili replied that she came because she heard a commotion. Then she turned to Erin and greeted her. "We've passed each other a few times, but this is our first real meeting, isn't it?" Ashili said. Erin replied that it was a pleasure to meet you for the first time. Lady Ashili had not attended Erin and Ferdin's engagement ceremony, so they had never met like this in Erin's past life either. Before the monsters appeared, Ashili rarely left her carriage, and she died early. Erin noticed that Ashili was staring at her for a long time. Of course, it made her uncomfortable. Erin knew Ashili was not pleased with her since she was now engaged to her former lover. Ashili suddenly leaned closer to Erin, startling her. "Lady Lysus, you're an interesting person, aren't you?" she said, her gaze sharp and deep. Erin thought to herself that Lady Ashili's eyes had sparkled just now when she came close. Ashili laughed, then called out to Amon and said that a duel would be fine, but she would be observing. Derek was shocked to hear Lady Ashili suggest such a thing. In fact, everyone was stunned, including Ferdin. He had thought she was against them fighting, so why was she now suggesting a duel? Ashili turned to Erin and asked if that was fine. Erin wondered if Lady Ashili planned to take revenge on her through Sir Amon. Still, Erin bowed her head slightly. "If it is your wish, I have no objections," she said. Her words left both Ferdin and Karen in shock. Ashili then grabbed both Amon and Erin and told them to come along. Derek glanced at Ferdin, who stood there in silence, and Karen was just as speechless. Ashili led them to another spot and said they would keep the duel modest. The rules were to fight fair and square and to avoid serious injury. Both of them drew their swords. "Begin," Lady Ashili said. Their swords clashed, and Erin thought to herself, Amon Hador, as expected of a genius swordsman. His stance is clean, with no wasted movement. Today she crossed swords with him, but in her previous life, he had been a knight ordered by Ferdin to protect her because of his foul mouth and lazy nature. In the end, he never became a sword master, but he was someone who understood honor. After Sir Ferdin died and Amon no longer had to protect her, he still followed that order until the moment of his own death. No matter how much he may owe me, Erin thought, that was then and this is now. She suddenly attacked, catching Amon off guard. Their swords rang loudly as they collided. Amon could not believe it. He had been struck by Erin Lysus, a complete novice? Erin stood before him, her eyes cold. "It seems you still haven't come to your senses," she said calmly. "That's fine. You'll come to your senses if you keep getting hit," Erin added with a laugh. Amon was completely confused. Who is she, he thought. At that moment, it became clear. Erin Lysus was no longer the same person. Erin kept her word and struck him again and again before finally pulling back her sword. "I lost. I was defeated by Erin Lysus," Amon said as he lay on the ground. Ashili called out that the duel was over. When Erin looked at her, she was surprised. Ashili did not look shocked at all. It was clear she had already expected this outcome. It didn't seem like she had planned this duel to take revenge. Amon asked how Erin could fight like that when she had only recently taken up the sword. He said you knew nothing about swordsmanship or a knight's honor, so how could she have such skill? Amon was still talking when Erin suddenly shoved him aside and slashed down a monster that had crept up behind him. Only then did Amon understand why she had pushed him. They were surrounded. Erin cut down the closest monsters one after another as more began closing in. Amon stood frozen in shock. They had never sensed this coming, yet now monsters were everywhere. They decided to run. Amon held Lady Ashili tightly, but her body was too weak to keep moving. She suddenly fell to the ground, clutching her chest in pain. A monster rushed in from behind her, but Erin struck it down at once. Her sword cut cleanly through it, and the monster collapsed to the ground. Amon told Erin that Lady Ashili was having a seizure. Erin quickly observed their surroundings. There were far too many monsters, and if she tried to carry Lady Ashili, she would not be able to move fast enough. Amon told Erin to run with them to a place where they could hide, and she did. They hid and watched as monsters appeared in large numbers of all kinds and sizes. "It's not completely safe, but we can catch our breath for now," Amon said, and they sat down. Erin thought to herself that the monsters were appearing earlier than expected, and most of them were mid-tier or even higher. She wondered if this had something to do with her return from the past. Amon moved closer to her and asked her to turn around and show him her back. She stared at him with suspicion, but he shouted that he only wanted to check her wound. He said he had noticed she was hurt earlier while saving him. Erin then realized it. Amon told her that it was a spot she could not easily treat on her own, so he would help her. Erin took off the top part of her clothes halfway, and Amon applied medicine to her back. She asked him why Lady Ashili suddenly had a seizure earlier. He explained that her body held a great amount of divine power, so it happened often. This time, the foul energy of the monsters may have triggered it. As Amon continued applying the medicine, Erin could not help thinking how uncomfortable the situation felt. Amon suddenly spoke again. He said that when he was a child, Erin wondered why he was suddenly bringing up something so personal. "I once followed my father into the underground prison," Amon said. "Perhaps he thought I was lazy and wanted to teach me a lesson, to show me the weight of committing a crime. I'm not sure. But I still remember the prisoner I saw that day." He continued, saying the man had been hung against the wall like a sack of grain. His body was covered in old scars from torture. Amon then told her that her back looked just like the scars on that prisoner's body. Erin was shocked. Amon asked who would dare lay hands on someone from the Marquis household. Erin suddenly called out to Amon and told him to take Lady Ashili and return to the camp at once. Amon was stunned. Erin put her clothes back on and told him that Lady Ashili's breathing had grown rapid and her condition was getting worse. Amon shouted, asking what he took him for. He said that if anyone should be running, it should be her, carrying Lady Ashili. Erin shouted back, begging him to do as she said. She told him she could not run as fast as him if she had to carry Lady Ashili, so he had to go and get help. Amon was completely confused. He had not expected this at all. Meanwhile, back at the camp, the others heard the sound of monsters moving in the distance. The sounds were not getting closer, but everyone remained alert. Ferdin sensed something was wrong. Why were the monsters not approaching? Or were they not monsters at all? He turned around and saw Amon arriving with Lady Ashili on his back. What happened? Did you encounter them? The ground suddenly shook, Ferdin asked as he rushed toward them. Then he noticed that only the two of them were there. Where is Erin? Asked Ferdin.
We split up along the way, Emin replied, breathing heavily. She said she would act as a decoy. Both Ferdin and Karen were left in shock. Erin swung her sword with passion, punning down every monster that came near her. She thought to herself that this was an act she had repeated until exhaustion in her third life. In that world, which overflowed with monsters, laws and order had long vanished. Killing hordes of monsters was not a choice, it was a necessity. In that life, she had reached the peak of the sword, the mastery known as a sword master. She wondered if, had she realized her talent earlier in her first life, she could have saved anyone. Her expression darkened at the thought. Back then, she could not protect anyone, but now she would protect them all. She fought without fear, her blade never stopping as she continued to slay the monsters. Back at the camp, Karen glared at Ammon and asked, "What he meant by her sister became bait," he shouted. "Don't tell me you abandoned her just to save yourself and still call yourself a knight." Karen grabbed Ammon by the collar, shaking him in anger. Before it could escalate further, Lilia stepped forward. "I have to go save her," she said firmly. Lilia was using her magic to revive Lady Ashili, while explaining that Erin had acted as bait for a horde of monsters, putting herself in danger on purpose. There was no way she would let that woman die so easily. Everyone could see the bitter fire in Lilia's eyes. Karen, shocked, asked, "Is that why you want to go save her?" His anger nearly made him attack her, but Ferdin stepped in, warning him to watch his words. Lilia and Ferdin exchanged a tense glare while Derek carefully held Lady Ashili. Ferdin then turned to Karen, speaking calmly but firmly. "Right now, what matters is saving Lady Erin first." Ferdin left to request reinforcements. Karen's gaze burned into Ammon as he muttered bitterly, "I'll never forgive you if anything happens to my sister." Meanwhile, Ammon couldn't stop thinking about how strong Erin had been during their duel. Elsewhere, on a different path in the forest, Erin staggered forward, soaked in blood, supporting her wounded arms. She thought to herself that she had erased all her tracks and dealt with the monsters using sword energy only a true sword master could wield. No one would suspect she was still alive. If she could circle back and return to the knight's camp. The word return felt strange in her mouth. She whispered the name Calyps, tears threatening to fall. Calyps was Lilia's elder brother and had once been assigned as Erin's personal attendant. He was one of the few people Erin could never forget, even across all her lives. Calyps was the first to notice her stepmother's cruel nature and urged Erin to tell her father. He promised he would stand by her, but Erin had hesitated, afraid her father might see her useless, like her stepmother said. Calyps encouraged her, reminding her that the Marquis loved her and planted the first seed of courage in her. But her stepmother discovered their plan and killed Calyps, even bringing his body to Erin, mocking him as a rat for daring to warn her. She blamed Erin for his death because Erin had taken his side. Erin had wept painfully, realizing her naivety had cost him his life. Calyp's cold body was sent home, and thanks to her stepmother's lies, it was said that Erin herself had killed him. Her reputation was ruined, and no one cared to know the truth. Standing in the rain, Erin wondered why she had returned now. If she had come back sooner, maybe she could have saved Calyps. Still, unlike before, at least she could save Ashili this time. Maybe that would change the future. "If I'm gone, everyone might be happier," she whispered. Suddenly, she sensed someone approaching. She looked up to see Ferdin running toward her, worry etched on his face. Tears welled in her eyes. Why him, of all people? Ferdin reached her as she began to faint. Meanwhile, in the marquisate of Lysus, Erin's stepmother stood in her room sipping wine and looking out the window, completely unbothered. A few days later, at the Marquis Lysus residence, knights stood stationed around the estate, prepared to fend off any enemy intruders. It was a grand display of power, reflecting the Marquis's achievements on the front line and his distinguished status in the empire. But someone else benefited from this power, wealth, and honor. Marchioness Corellia Lysus. In her room, wearing a high-quality dress, she held a rose and smiled as Rayman stood behind her. "It's already been more than a decade since my second marriage with Marquis Lysus," she said. She rang a bell, and servants appeared instantly to serve her. "I think I've grown too attached to the role of Marchioness. I might even feel some regret if I had to return to my original role," she added,
grinning coldly. Raymond asked if she truly wanted to return, but she replied that she was hiding any sign of swordsmanship with black magic. It didn't suit the role of a marchioness. A few decades ago, when Corellia was very young, she stood before His Majesty. He praised her extraordinary talent, saying she was even stronger than Marquis Lysus. She politely apologized, but His Majesty yelled, "I called you because I need your strength. There aren't many swords masters in the Empire, only 3. Across the entire continent, there are no more than 10. His Majesty asked her to help stop the chaos caused by these swords masters, warning that once he resigned, he wouldn't be able to act as he wished. Dame Corellia listened carefully and promised to do as he said. Although it had been a long time since then, His Majesty had always desired to acquire the Marquisate of Lysus, a family known for producing swords masters. So Corellia had been hiding her identity for many years. Meanwhile, the legacy of the Marquisate had been torn apart and ruined by its younger generation. Everything had gone according to plan since the Marquis had been stranded on the front line, rarely returning home. But recently, she received a letter. The subjugation party from Athens Academy, sent to deal with a monster outbreak, had completed the mission with the help of a passing swordsmaster, and all members returned safely. Are you telling me all my plans were ruined by a passing swordsmaster? Marchioness Corellia exclaimed, her expression cold and furious. She read the letter again, unable to believe it. She angrily grabbed a white ceramic vase and threw it across the room. It shattered into pieces. All my plans ruined, and everyone survived, all because of some swordsmaster? She seethed with disbelief. I love this! It's obvious Erin had secretly conquered all the monsters and saved everyone without anyone knowing. The maid entered the room looking confused, saying she heard a noise and asking to be pardoned for intruding. The Marchioness smiled gently and said her hands had slipped, then asked her to please clean it up. The maid immediately took over, asking if her lady was hurt anywhere, while Rayman watched calmly as the Marchioness replied that she was fine. As soon as the maid finished cleaning, she asked to excuse herself. The Marchioness smiled in response, but the moment the maid left, her expression turned cold. Rayman, do you think this makes sense? She asked. He replied that the message they received yesterday was indeed strange. There were not many swordmasters on the continent, yet one just happened to pass by at that exact moment in the forest. Princess Ashili should have been dead in this subjugation, the Marchioness shouted angrily. She said she wanted Duke Ashili to abandon Ferdinand Lexus, and because of this plan, she even went as far as forcing Erin to get engaged to the second prince. And all of it gets ruined by a passing swordmaster, she yelled, completely losing her mind as she pulled at her hair. Raymond immediately held her hand, warning her she would get into trouble if she smashed anything else. She glared at him, and he stared back firmly without backing down. She slammed her fist on the table and said she heard that Erin had wielded a sword at Atan's Academy, and she needed to confirm whether what Sir Reckon claimed was true. Her lady still remembered the first day she met Erin. The little girl had been so happy and had even asked if she could call her mother. She glared at her then, thinking coldly that she was not her mother. Her eyes blinked with pure innocence, her face soft and flower-like, clearly the image of a child born into a good family. Then one day, as she was passing by, she saw Erin secretly practicing how her brother wielded a sword. Erin's stance had been very good, yet the little girl shook her head, thinking she had not done it well. At that moment, the Marchioness was shocked and could not help but think that the child possessed the skill of a swordmaster. She punished Erin harshly, to the point where Erin begged through tears, saying she was wrong for doing such a thing. That was when her lady thought to herself that she must destroy her, because a swordmaster needs strong muscles, and Erin already had talent far beyond Marquis Lysus's legacy.
That was also when the incident with Erin's personal servant happened. Calops was not afraid to speak directly to her face, telling her she was wrong and that she should fear God. "You will not be forgiven," he added. At that moment, Corellia could not believe that even a mere servant dared to lecture her like that. That is why she erased him from the surface of the earth. It broke Erin completely, and in the end, she felt it was not a bad choice at all. There's not much time left to act. Now that His Majesty has begun to move, the plan cannot go wrong from here, her lady said as she let go of Rayman's grasp. She turned to him and ordered him to go to Atan's and confirm whether Erin truly used a sword. Walking toward the window, she continued, saying that even if Erin were to learn swordsmanship with broken bones, at best she should only reach the level of a senior knight. But if it turned out that she truly wielded a sword, then it would be acceptable if her wrist were broken due to an accident. Her lady glanced at Rayman through the glass, calling him by name and asking if she was right. Raymond did not say a word. At the same time, in Erin's room, she was lying on the bed while Karen sat beside her. Her fingers and hand were wrapped in bandages. Suddenly, her eyes opened and she woke up. "Sis, are you awake?" Karen jumped up in panic. Erin slowly sat up and asked why she was here, but Karen gently pushed her back, telling her to lie down, explaining that she was in her academy room. She was surprised and thought to herself that she must have been unconscious for quite a while. Looking at her hands, she instantly realized she had been changed into new clothes and properly taken care of. She wondered who could have done that. She turned her head when she heard Karen groan angrily. He suddenly raised his voice, asking if she had lost her mind. Erin felt like her ears would burst as he kept scolding her, saying she almost got herself killed by acting as bait. Karen stopped shouting when he realized she had just woken up and still needed to rest. His expression softened, and he calmly told her that he was not angry, just that... Meanwhile, Erin was studying his face. It was clear to her that he was not the one who changed her clothes. If he had been, he would have asked about the scars all over her body first. Just then, she noticed that Karen's arms were fine. This time, things had not gone like before. She reached out and touched his arms, feeling relieved that they were unharmed. Seeing the relief on her sister's face, Karen's eyes became teary. He gently pushed her hands away and demanded to know why she would do something like that in the first place. "You almost got yourself killed! From now on, don't ever do that again," he warned. He added that if things ever reached that point again, she should run and save herself. Erin was stunned. She thought she had seen tears in his eyes, but he suddenly turned away. She convinced herself it must have been her imagination and slowly got out of the bed. Karen panicked and told her to lie back down, but she complained that she was thirsty. He told her to wait there and rushed out to get water for her. As he poured water into a cup, he told her that it was a good thing she woke up while Ferdin was not there. Erin was confused. "Don't joke around," she said. "I'm not joking," he replied. Erin was shocked. She found it strange that Lord Ferdin would visit her room. Suddenly, memories rushed back. How he had run to her in the forest, held her in his arms, and begged her to wake up. She remembered calling his name and how he pleaded with her to speak. She had begged him not to be like that with her. She had begged him not to be so kind. Thinking about it now, Erin was certain that after hearing those words, there was no way he would come to her room. Karen handed her the cup and said that it was still a relief that the Academy had permitted the visit. "Permission for whose visit?" she asked. Karen replied calmly that it was Lord Rayman's visit. Erin was instantly shocked. Karen explained that their mother must have been worried about her and had requested that Lord Rayman be assigned as her escort. "Isn't that great? You always looked up to Rayman, didn't you, sis?" But Erin's body trembled as she asked him if Lord Rayman was really coming. Meanwhile, in the Central Hall conference room, the team was gathered. Lately, everything had felt strange, one issue following another. During the monster subjugation, they had believed it was only a swarm of low-level monsters, but it turned out to be a swarm of mid-level ones. Then, out of nowhere, a swordsmaster appeared and took care of them. On top of that, whatever had happened with Erin Lysus had caused Amon to act strangely as well. But the strangest of all was Ferdindo, because he visited Erin Lysus's sickbed every single day. Ferdindo, who always maintained a perfect image, had been staring blankly out the window more often than usual. Derek couldn't help but worry to himself if they didn't send the monster subjugation report to His Majesty the Emperor soon, Ferdindo would still be the one to suffer for it. Looking at him now, Derek wondered what on earth was going through his mind. Inside Ferdinand's thoughts, he could not forget the moment in the forest when Erin spoke to him. She had asked him not to be so kind to her, saying that she hated it. He was confused. He could not
understand why she suddenly said she needed to hate him like everyone else. Did she truly hate him? He clenched his fist, wondering if that was why she did not want him near her, and if she had said those words on purpose just to push him away. Shouldn't we proceed with the meeting now, Ferdinand? Lilia asked, questioning how long he intended to keep them waiting in silence. Derek immediately stood up, asking why she was suddenly speaking in such a tone. Before things could escalate, Ferdinand interrupted, calmly saying that she was right. After all, he was the one who had called for the meeting in the first place. I don't see Lady Ashili. Does anyone know where she is? He asked as Lilia and Derek glared at each other. Amon replied that she had gone to see Dame Erin. What? Derek and Lilia shouted at the same time, asking if he had just added a title to Erin's name. Amon calmly told them that he had run into Lady Ashili on the way there, and she had said she heard that Dame Erin had woken up. She had also told him to proceed with the meeting without her. Derek complained that she must be ignoring them. Ferdinand, on the other hand, was surprised to hear that Erin had woken up and quietly thanked goodness that she was awake. Lilia glared and said it seems that they had all grown close to her. She admitted that getting along is a good thing, but it was absurd that they still had not reported the situation to His Majesty the Emperor, especially how strange it was that the monsters in the northern forest were mid-level. But I suppose it's a fine thing to rejoice that a murderer is awake, free of such worries, Lilia added with a mocking smile. Amon frowned and told her that she had gone too far. She turned on him sharply, yelling that he had no right to say such things after suddenly switching sides and trying to put her in her place. She added that he must have grown close to Erin after facing just one crisis together. And you, Lord Ferdinand, you're no different, she added angrily. Lilia stood up, saying that they were her colleagues, not Erin. The room fell completely silent. Standing there, Lilia realized she had become too emotional and had not meant to say all of that. Though she slowly sat back down, her voice softer, and admitted that she had gotten carried away. She said that she only meant that the report was the one thing they should truly be worried about. Then, she asked if they had not noticed the message the Academy received. Duke Ashili is scheduled to visit Atanz as a special guest instructor. Lilia called out to Ferdinand, saying that Duke Ashili, the father of his former lover, was coming. In Erin's room, she was completely flustered by the fact that Lady Ashili had come to see her. The two of them sat across from each other, and the Duchess kept smiling warmly. Erin looked away, wondering why the Duchess had come to visit her in the first place. I heard from Amon that you offered yourself as a decoy for us, Ashili said with a smile, adding that she came to thank her. Erin replied that she did not need to go through all that trouble, though she thought to herself that the Duchess's presence was making her feel strangely uncomfortable. Ashili stood up and said that anyone who deserved thanks should be thanked. She then moved closer and sat beside Erin, gently asking if there was anywhere that hurt. I healed the wounds you got from the monsters with divine power, but I left the other injuries to heal on their own, Ashili explained. Her expression suddenly darkened as she added that she was also the one who had helped change Erin's clothes.
Erin glanced at her, and Ashili immediately brightened with a smile, assuring her that she had not told anyone about the scars and never would. Ashili calmly held Erin's hand and said she did not know what Erin's circumstances were, but it seemed clear that she did not want anyone to know. Erin looked up and quietly asked, "Don't you hate me?" Ashili was shocked and suddenly panicked, loudly asking why she ever would. Erin felt like her eardrums were about to burst from the sudden shout. "You were in a relationship with Lord Ferdinand, weren't you? Because of me, you two broke up. Of course I thought you hated me," Erin explained. Ashili finally understood. She told Erin that it was true they had been in a relationship, but it was not true that she hated her. Erin was confused. Ashili looked sad as she apologized, saying she could not explain everything right now because of certain circumstances. Erin wondered what kind of circumstances she was talking about. "But one thing I can tell you for sure," Ashili said gently, holding Erin's hand, "is that I don't hate you, Lady Lysus." She smiled softly and asked how she could ever hate the person who saved her life. Ashili then asked if she could call Erin by her name. Erin was shocked. Had she just been called a lifesaver? Erin thought to herself that she did not deserve such a title. She had never properly protected anyone before. That was why she was so flustered when the Duchess entered her room, because she was facing her alive, a person she had never gotten the chance to meet in her previous life. Ashili was clearly happy. She pulled Erin along excitedly, saying she would come to visit often. "Please, take good care of me from now on, Knight Erin," Ashili said cheerfully. Erin glanced at her in surprise, then suddenly smiled and said she would. After spending such an unexpected amount of time together, Erin realized she could not miss her classes. She decided to attend the afternoon session. However, as soon as she arrived, Eamon approached her and addressed her formally, asking whether she should not be resting instead. Once again, Erin found herself in an unexpected situation. Everyone around them began murmuring after hearing Sir Eamon call Erin a knight. They wondered what on earth was going on for him to address her so formally. Erin was just as shocked as they were. She turned her head and looked around, checking if the sun had risen from the west or something. Eamon asked what she was doing. She replied that she was checking to see if the sun had risen from the west. He asked if it had. She replied that it was the same as always.
"That's not the point," Erin said. "Why are you here? You're from the advanced class, so what are you doing with the beginners?" she asked curiously as he picked up a sword. Amon replied calmly that he had moved to the beginner class. Erin was stunned and asked what he meant. In the swordsmanship department, one must carry out a mission given by the emperor in order to advance to the next level, according to the academy's tradition. The missions vary and are extremely dangerous, including monster subjugation, duels with veteran knights, and more. Amon had received one of the most difficult missions among them and was promoted to the advanced class only after immense struggle. Looking at him now, Erin wondered why he would go through such trouble again just to be promoted once more. "I moved because I wanted to. There's no need to make such a face," Amon said, adding that he realized he was lacking. Amon fell into a flashback of how Erin had fought the monsters and told him to go with Lady Ashili while she stayed behind to buy time until reinforcements arrived. That memory played in his mind again and again. Amon told her sadly that leaving someone behind was a terrible feeling, and that in that moment he had been completely weak. "And yet, despite being weak, I had the audacity to tell you that you didn't know honor. That was such an arrogant thing to say," Amon continued. His words left Erin completely speechless. He added that in truth, he was the one filled with arrogance. He told her that he wanted to apologize. He also said that since it seemed she did not want to talk about what happened, he would keep what he saw a secret. "But just one thing," Amon said. "When you're fully healed, could you duel with me?" As Erin looked into his eyes, she understood the meaning behind that gaze. It was the look of a knight who longed to grow stronger, who wished to protect someone, and who was willing to die for them. Erin knew that when a knight looked at another knight like that, refusal was impossible. "I don't mind. We can duel right now," she replied. Amon asked if she was sure about that. Erin firmly told him not to go easy on her just because she was a patient, because she would not go easy on him either. Amon smiled as he watched her walk away, saying that would not happen. Meanwhile, on the other side, Rayman had just arrived at the academy. "All right then," he said seriously. "Shall we go see Lady Erin?" Walking out of the dorm, Rayman thought to himself that the dorm head said Erin went to the training grounds. He froze immediately when he noticed someone approaching. Staying in the shadows at the corner, he saw it was Duke Ashili, one of the 3 sword masters in the Empire. Wherever he passed, piles of monster corpses were left behind. Commander of the Empire's elite First Knight Order, a man who had reached the pinnacle of the sword, the idol and role model of all knights. The Duke's assistant explained how the monsters the students had encountered were high-ranked and how a passing swordmaster had taken care of them. Ronald Ashili, of course, found this surprising. Raymond stayed hidden, thinking he had heard Duke Ashili had been assigned to investigate the monster subjugation, but he had not expected to run into him here. "Don't talk nonsense. A swordmaster suddenly appeared and wiped them out?" Ronald asked coldly, leaving his subordinates shocked. Raymond peeked from his hiding spot, hearing the Duke scold him, told the knight if he even dared speak lightly of a master, he should know what truly means to be a swordmaster. He had not yet reached that level. Mana coats shimmered around the Duke as he spoke, and his knights couldn't help but think how impressive it was to witness. He quickly bowed and apologized, saying he understood. The Duke angrily walked away, then suddenly stopped when he noticed Raymond at the corner. Raymond bowed immediately. Ronald wondered if his aura had overwhelmed him. Judging by his appearance, he could tell this was not an academy student, but someone familiar. His subordinate whispered, "The young man in front of us is Raymond of House Lysus." "From the Lloyd household?" Ronald asked, staring back at Raymond. He thought to himself, the Marquis only usually brings Sir Reckon around, so he might not remember this one, but it seems Lloyd valued him too. "My apologies for the late greetings, Duke Ashili," Raymond said politely. "It's been a while." Ronald said nothing, only staring, thinking that he had heard this one was also a high-ranking knight like Sir Reckon, but his surface-level skill was still far from that level. Ronald turned away, asking his subordinate where Erin Lysus was. She was at the training grounds. He nodded and said they should head there. Raymond was surprised, thinking that the Duke had made him look invisible and was going to see Erin for the investigation. He wondered why, since Duke Ashili only cared about people with real talent for the sword. Being judged like that didn't feel pleasant at all. Meanwhile, at the training grounds, everyone had gathered, including the Council of Monster Subjugation. Karen was wondering what on earth was going on. Erin and Amon were already fighting fiercely in front of everyone. Why were they suddenly dueling? Karen was surprised at Erin's composure, while Sir Amon was clearly struggling. Immediately, Erin saw Eamon moving toward her with his sword. She knew instantly that she needed to dodge to the side. Eamon attacked and smiled, thinking he had the upper hand, only for Erin to strike back so fast that he was shocked. She used a style to defeat him that left him stunned. Not only had she copied his moves, but she had also replicated his family sword technique after seeing him use it once. Eamon glanced in fear as Erin pointed her sword at him. How could this be possible? Everyone watching was shocked to see Erin defeat Eamon, especially Karen. He thought it was unbelievable. How could Sir Eamon lose to Erin? He had assumed her success during the monster subjugation was just luck, but this was something else. How did you copy our family sword technique? Eamon asked as Erin helped him to his feet, telling him to treat her normally as he usually would. Just then, a voice came from behind, praising their remarkable performance. It was Duke Ashili. They were all surprised. Erin glanced at him and couldn't believe he had arrived so early. As he approached, she noticed someone behind him, Raymond. Her eyes widened in shock. Raymond's lips moved as he said, "It's been a while." Erin was stunned. Sir Raymond had been someone she had relied on in the past, back in House Lysus, when she thought she had no allies. He had been like an oasis in the desert, standing by her side. She would have probably trusted him until the end. Rayman approached, saying he had come because he heard she had been injured during the monster subjugation, but seeing her now, it seemed it hadn't been that serious. He immediately raised his hand to touch her. Erin reacted instinctively, drawing her sword and swinging it at him. He was shocked. Eamon was even more surprised. Erin covered her reaction, saying she smelled sweat. Erin recalled how Raymond had been the last person she saw before dying. He was the one to pass Madame's message to her about her family, and then he had killed her without mercy. "Erin?" Raymond called, surprised at her reaction. Erin smiled, thinking to herself that it was good to see him again, and now, finally, she could take her revenge for her death. Earlier, before now, Raymond had arrived while Erin and Eamon were still fighting. He was surprised at how strong her lady had become. He wondered when she had grown so powerful. Had it been since she joined the department, which was such a short time, or was it the talent that Corellia had been wary of? Even so, he could tell that she was exceptionally skilled. While helping Eamon to his feet, he told Erin that there was no way he could act like he used to. She simply smiled at him and asked him to. Raymond was stunned. He couldn't believe she had just smiled like that. He had never seen her make such a face. Immediately, Erin flicked Raymond's hand away, following it up with a smile, teasing that he seemed different from before. Suddenly, they received a notice to resume class. Erin told him she had to go and turned away, saying she would see him later. Watching her leave, Raymond couldn't believe it was actually happening. He raised the hand she had kicked away and glared silently. Corellia had thoroughly broken Erin's mind and body, training her to her own liking. Since Corellia had been in charge of breaking the young lady's wings, Raymond had taken it upon himself to play the role of her savior. Back in the garden, he had once saved her from a snake. Erin had been so grateful, saying that if it hadn't been for him, things could have gone badly. Raymond had smiled while bandaging her leg, but the truth was darker. He had been the one to send the snake and had watched it follow her, waiting until it bit her before he appeared. She had screamed, but he ignored it, then showed up after it had already struck. He had smiled, thinking how lucky she was that it wasn't a viper. In the Marquis's residence, with no escape, Erin had become a complete outcast, crushed by sudden abuse. The innocent young lady, knowing nothing, had clung to the faint warmth he offered and held on to even the smallest glimmer of hope. When he grabbed her hand, she had fallen into his arms, and he had complained about her getting lighter, scolding her to eat properly. He warned that if she entered the swordsmanship department in that state, she wouldn't even be able to lift a wooden sword. Raymond had watched her transform from despair to finding even the smallest glimmer of light, and it had been so amusing back then. And yet now, she cast him aside. Raymond clenched his fist, thinking to himself that he would just have to remind her who her savior really was.
That evening in Ferdin's office, Duke Ashili sat unable to stop thinking about Erin's astonishing talent. Her sword movements were precise, her power controlled and restrained, and she pressed her opponent at exactly the right timing. Ronald thought to himself that when he had seen her briefly as a child, she had shown no hint of talent with a sword. She had looked so frail that he had wondered if she could even stand properly. Truly, the way children grow is frightening. "Duke Ashili," Ferdin called from behind as he entered. Ronald immediately turned. Ferdin smiled politely, greeting him. "It's been a while." Looking at him, Ferdin realized he had been lost in thought and hadn't noticed when he entered. "Yes, and how has His Highness, the Second Prince, been doing?" he asked. Ferdin replied that he had come for official business, but this was an informal setting, so he should feel free to speak comfortably. "You're my mother's friend and have always looked after me since I was a child. Please treat me as usual," he added. The Duke said that was fine. "Since we're on the subject, there's something I need to ask." Ferdin was surprised. "Go ahead," he said. The Duke rose, coldly and firmly. "While I was devoting myself to the Empire, subjugating monsters in the southern mountains, you went and got engaged to Erin Lysus without even consulting me, didn't you?" Monocoats flowed out from the Duke as usual, and Ferdin could barely block all of it. The Duke continued shouting, "I know you had no choice. It was His Majesty's command, and you even issued an additional order, but even so, how dare you choose a villainess over your saintly daughter? I would rather abandon the Empire than abandon my daughter." "That's enough, Father," Lady Ashili interrupted. She told her father calmly that her and Ferdin's relationship was an arranged contract designed to keep the factions around them in check. "I got your permission beforehand, so why are you angry now?" she asked. Ronald's tears welled up and he ran to his daughter with a cute, exasperated expression. "That's not what I meant," he said. "I just didn't want it to look like you'd been dumped." Lady Ashili quarreled, saying she was always treated like a tragic heroine. Ferdin stood silently, thinking that he had seen this scene many times before, but still couldn't understand it. Lady Ashili continued, telling her father not to speak badly of Dame Erin because she was her friend. The Duke was surprised. His daughter told him she actually liked Erin and added that he had seen her at the training grounds and witnessed how strong she was. "Indeed," Ronald said, glaring at Ferdin, "she holds quite exceptional talent. Is that why you accepted the engagement with Erin Lysus? She showed you her talent, didn't she? Through your ability?" The Duke's words caused Ferdin to stare coldly. Ferdento Lexia's gifted ability was a rare power, passed down only through the Lexia bloodline, the very reason the imperial family had maintained unshakable power for generations. It was the power to forcefully reveal someone's past without restraint, the eyes that see truth. "As you know, Duke," Ferdin said, "my ability isn't something I can summon at will. It decides on its own when to show me someone's past." "Are you literally saying you saw nothing?" the Duke asked. "I saw nothing related to swordsmanship talent," Ferdin replied. "Then you did see something, didn't you?" the Duke pressed. "I can't tell you," answered Ferdin. Seeing Ferdin refuse him so firmly, Ronald wondered what on earth he saw. He sighed and called out to him, saying, "The Emperor is just waiting for the perfect moment to cut him down. I can't openly protect you. Among swordsmasters, they swore never to meddle in the affairs of the imperial family." He added that this must be the reason His Majesty allowed his engagement with the so-called Empire's villainess, so that if she made any mistake, he could use it as proof that he failed to keep her line and hold him accountable. Ferdin, on hearing this, replied that he was aware. Ronald sighed again, wondering if he was truly aware. "Sending me here to investigate the monster subjugation was likely his way of telling me to dig up my weaknesses myself," he said, turning to Ferdin. "About that incident, no ordinary knight would have handled the swarm of monsters we saw." Ferdin told him that they had been wondering the same thing, since the monsters had all been slaughtered before they could even assess the situation. Ronald hummed, thinking to himself that he really had to take a closer look at the others who had joined the subjugation. "Could it have been the work of someone in the unit?" Ferdin asked. The Duke replied that once someone reaches a certain level, it's hard to gauge their true ability. "I'd like to meet whoever's hiding out there. It's been too long since I had a worthy opponent." Ferdin and Lady Ashili couldn't stop looking at him. It was late, and they had to adjourn the meeting for the day. Before leaving with his daughter, Ronald called out to Ferdin, who was still behind. He answered. "Thank you for bringing my daughter back safely," he said, smiling and holding her on the shoulder. Her lady was surprised, and so was Ferdin. He smiled and told the Duke that the ones who should be thanked were Dame Erin and Lord Ammon, not him, because they were the ones who had made sure she came back unharmed. The door slammed, and Ferdin, who stayed behind, went silent. He suddenly thought to himself about the Duke's words regarding the Emperor allowing the engagement with the Empire's villainous. The words Empire's villainous sounded so off to him, and he concluded that he wasn't so sure about that. Looking out the window, he glanced at a particular tree below, and immediately a memory flashed in his mind. It was a memory of Erin sitting under that tree with a cat, smiling. He thought to himself softly that he didn't think Erin was a villainess. A few months ago, the second prince of the empire, Ferdinando Lexia, though born of a concubine, was blessed with boundlessly generous nature. Entering the academy, students would glance at him like he was an angel, saying he was as handsome as ever. He was the epitome of what a prince should be. The only recent change in his life was his relationship with Lady Ashili. They'd been friends since childhood. Their pairing, a prince and a saintess, was enough to stir public curiosity and fuel romantic fantasies. They were the perfect image of an ideal couple, at least to everyone but themselves. Out of the public eye, they grew irritated by the clinginess they had to portray. Lady Ashili would always complain about the eyes watching her, forcing her to smile. He yelled at her for walking like a snail, and he yelled back at her for walking like a snail. Their friendship was like any other, always bickering at every opportunity. For months, they had been like sworn enemies, even though they had secretly signed a public contract declaring themselves lovers. They had made that choice because of imperial power struggles and their own grudges. The emperor favored the first prince, born of the empress, over Ferdinando. Naturally, Ferdinando and the first prince became political rivals. Without ties to a powerful noble house, Ferdinando was at a disadvantage. Lady Ashili, the only daughter of the Ashili dukedom and a saintess by birth, had a swordmaster for a father. But like him, she cared little for political power, though she still carried a grudge against the emperor. Having known each other since childhood, Ferdin and Lady Ashili understood each other better than anyone. Ferdin needed a shield to strengthen his position, and Lady Ashili believed Ferdinando was the only one who could check the emperor and the first prince's unchecked authority. So they chose a contract romance. Lady Ashili sat tiredly on the couch, saying she knew what she had signed up for, but it was exhausting. It's bad enough pretending to be sweet in public to maintain my image as a saintess, but I have to play the doting lover on top of that, she complained. Ferdin, standing, told her to say the word, anything, and he would cancel the contract for her. Ashili asked if he thought he would survive after canceling it. He sat down, exhausted, and asked, "What if you end up losing your life? Getting involved with me has already put you in danger." "Please," she said confidently, "people die eventually, with or without you. I didn't sign this contract to save your life. I made the best choice I could to save the empire." Ferdin couldn't help but smile at how saint-like she was. She told him he should think more about himself, mentioning that she had heard rumors of his engagement underway with Dame Lysus. At the banquet that night, when Erin made her entrance, everyone was stunned, especially Lady Ashili and Ferdir. People were surprised that Ferdin actually attended the banquet. They told him it had been a long time since they had seen him at events like this. Ferdin explained that he hadn't been able to come due to academic activities. "But is the story true?" someone asked, referring to his engagement. "I heard he's engaged to Lady Erin." Ferdin remembered that the emperor had commended him to attend this banquet to consider a match that would be excellent for him and to put other rumors to rest. So he couldn't answer the questions about his engagement. At that moment, Erin made her entrance, stunning as ever, as she approached him. On seeing them together, everyone concluded and murmured among themselves that the engagement rumors must be true for this wicked woman to show up at the banquet. Everyone felt sorry for the second prince. Hearing all this, Erin ran off and Ferdin watched. Later, he showed up in front of her with a plate of sliced cake, asking if she had eaten because he noticed she hadn't touched any food. Seeing this, Erin was of course shocked, and he could tell. Just as Erin was about to speak, Ferdin suddenly felt strange. He grabbed his face, looking pale. Erin worriedly asked what was wrong, but he was lost in thought. At that moment, his ability manifested. He saw himself in a strange place and wondered why it had suddenly appeared now. Looking into a corner, he saw Erin crying in pain. He was surprised. He couldn't believe he was seeing Erin's past. He could tell it was her room.
Leaning closer, he looked at her up close, wondering why she was crying in such deep sorrow. Instantly, he remembered that was how he used to cry as a child, too. Immediately, Ferdin regained his consciousness. Erin was calling him. "Your face suddenly felt pale. Are you all right?" she asked. He said he was fine, though he was still looking around in disbelief. He sighed, realizing he was back, but felt a severe headache. Looking at Erin, he wondered what on earth he had just seen. People began murmuring about how His Highness was looking pale and speculating what the woman must have said to him. They called Erin rotten in nature, and Erin felt very uncomfortable. Burden could see her sadness as she excused herself to go touch up her makeup. The expression on her face was just the same as the one he had seen in the past he had just glimpsed. As she turned to leave, he immediately held her hand, thanking her for her concern and apologizing for startling her just now. Everyone was surprised to see him holding her hand and apologizing so openly. He asked Erin not to worry about him and handed her the cake, smiling and saying she should make sure to eat it. Erin was touched and thanked him gratefully. Back at his office, Ferdin sighed, thinking about how he had tried to attend the banquet today. He remembered Erin's sad face when people talked about her. He couldn't help thinking that this was the first time he had seen her make such a face. He thought about all the nicknames people gave her. Some called her the worst villainess of the century, others the disgrace of the Lysus family, and some even called her the greatest witch of the empire. It was as though she existed solely to hear every insult in the world, with malicious gossip following her in the shadows. Yet even once, he had never seen her cause a scene at a gathering or banquet. She rarely attended such events, and whenever she did, she always stayed quietly in a corner. Ferdin remembered that she had left early today and hadn't even eaten much of the cake he gave her. He sat close to the window, wondering if she was a light eater. Suddenly, Ferdin wondered why he was even thinking about all this. Glancing at the table, he saw a document that reminded him of people's talks about his engagement to Lady Erin, and of His Majesty's words about attending the banquet to meet his perfect match face to face. He sighed, remembering that he actually had his own problems and was worrying about someone else. Immediately, he looked out the window. At that moment, he saw Erin sitting under the tree with a cat, gently caressing it. His eyes widened in shock, and he couldn't believe his eyes. Lady Lysus? He thought to himself, watching her hug the cat affectionately. People thought of him as perfect and called him the flawless second prince of the empire, but the truth was very different. Every time he met with the emperor, he was always reminded that he resembled that woman and that there was nothing about him the emperor liked. "I should never have taken that woman as a concubine. What a waste of the noble blood of the Lysus imperial line flowing in your veins. Vulgar half-breed," the emperor yelled. Ferdin's mother was a saintess of the Holy Kingdom who served the goddess. Until she passed away from illness, she had been the goddess's spokesperson, hearing her voice and speaking her prophecies. Ferdin's father, the emperor, trampled on her Holy Kingdom, took her as a concubine, and ruled the Holy Kingdom as a vassal state of the empire. Even her mother was powerless. Ferdin was born amid all humiliation and insult. His father was displeased with his very existence. To him, Ferdin was sanctified royal blood defiled by a creature who sullied the imperial line. If the emperor were to learn that Ferdin even inherited the Lexia royal family's special ability, he would have tried to kill him on the spot. His father wished for his death, and his half-siblings hated him. So for Ferdin, being in a situation where attacks could come at any time, caring for someone else would have been truly foolish. And yet, for some reason, he kept seeing different sides of her. After seeing Erin with the cat in the garden near his office window, he couldn't concentrate in class the next day. He felt he had seen something he shouldn't have. That cat he had often seen at the academy was thin the first time he noticed it, but now, even from a distance, it looked healthy. He wondered if Lady Erin was behind that, if maybe she had been taking care of the stray cat. Immediately, Derek appeared, asking Ferdin what was wrong because he seemed to be spacing out and the class was over. "You're acting strangely. Did something happen at yesterday's banquet? Or maybe a lover's quarrel with the young lady?" he asked, sitting down. "If that isn't it, then the Black Emperor must have said something to you." His prospective knights, including Derek, didn't know that he and Lady Ashili were contract dating, and they didn't know the imperial family affairs in detail, but they were aware of how his father treated him.
Ferdin told Derek it was nothing, though of course Derek argued. He said there was no way that was true. He had already heard that Erin attended the banquet and that nasty woman was trying to get engaged to him. Ferdin insisted that nothing really happened and that Erin might not be as bad as the rumor said. Derek doubted him, asking, how could a rumor last for 10 years if the person is innocent? There's always a reason for it. Ferdin refused to believe it. He thought to himself that he couldn't, because today marked the 8th time he had seen unexpected sides of her. The first was that she fed a cat every morning, afternoon, and evening. That's 3 times a day. The place she fed it was behind his old dormitory, a place students in the new dorm barely visited. It was perfect for her to visit in secret, and he hardly ever saw anyone around, so her trips remained a secret, one only Ferdin knew. One of those days, he received a letter from the Imperial Palace. When he read it, as usual, his expression changed. He crumpled it angrily and sat by the window. Days repeated themselves, and he wondered when it would end and what lay at the end. He and the cat were always in the same situation, waiting for her. That day, she came late at night, running. She met the cat as usual and gave it food, apologizing for running late. She explained that she had almost run into someone on the way, but promised to stay longer with it. Ferdin watched as usual, and for some reason, her presence allowed him to breathe a little easier. Suddenly, it started raining. Ferdin took an umbrella and headed to meet her in the rain. He froze when he saw her crying. Her smile had disappeared because she had lost the cat. That night, it began raining, and Ferdin woke up to the sound of thunder. He thought of the cat first. When he looked out, he saw Erin with the cat standing in the middle of the rain. He rushed down immediately, umbrella in hand, but when he reached the spot, they were gone. He followed the tracks, but by the time he found her, it was already too late, and there was nothing he could do. 1 month later, his life returned to normal. The habit of staring out the window disappeared, and he never saw Dame Erin after that day. It was only natural, since Erin and he weren't in the same division. If she hadn't come to the side of his dorm, they would never have crossed paths. Then the rumors about him being engaged to Erin Lysus began spreading again, and he could hear the students whispering about it. They even pitied him for getting engaged to a murderer who killed Lilia's brother. Immediately, a brick fell on the student who was calling Erin a murderer. He looked up angrily and saw Derek and Ferdin. They were shocked. The student didn't know the people he was gossiping about were nearby. He ran off apologizing while Derek called out for him to come pick up his books, but they were already gone. Derek cursed at them for being cowards, praising Ferdin to his face while gossiping about his life in private. Ferdin reminded him this wasn't the first or second time he had been gossiped about. Derek panicked and asked why he didn't even get angry. Derek, Ferdin called. Derek turned immediately. Ferdin asked why he had decided to follow him. The vicious rumors continued to chase Dame Lysus, while Ferdin maintained the outward appearance of a perfect prince. But deep down, he knew the truth. What everyone sees isn't the whole truth. In the Imperial family, Ferdin's existence was all flash and no substance. The people he loved and followed were always met with misfortune. They were forced to either leave his side or suffer with him. Ferdin told Derek he knew the truth. His father's coercion would only continue, and at this rate, his family... Before he could finish, Derek called out his name and confidently asked if he needed a reason to follow whom he wanted. Why not suffer for someone I wish to be loyal to? Suffering is part of life, Derek said with a small smile. Wouldn't it be better to suffer following someone I choose? Ferdin was shocked and couldn't help but laugh out loud. You're just as crazy as I am, he said. Derek complained, saying he was even better than Lady Amon. The reason Ferdin had avoided approaching Dame Lysus all this time was that he feared even greater misfortunes would befall her. For the first time, he was grateful to his father for personally making her his fiancée. The first time they met after the engagement was when she was transferred to the night division. For some reason, she carried a different aura than before, and he wanted to know more about her. That was why he approached her on the first day she arrived, and everyone was surprised. Back in the present day, Ferdin stood near the window, lost in thought. He couldn't help but reflect on everything he had observed about Erin so far. She was far from causing harm to anyone. In fact, she seemed to avoid people, and the rumors about her killing Calyps must be false. That realization made him even curious about her. Yet lately, she was always surrounded by others, making it difficult for him to approach her. He wondered if there might be a good way to get closer. 2 months later, Erin met Ferdin privately again, and the moment felt strangely familiar. She called out to him, looking down, and said she had heard from Lady Ashili, who had been visiting her room lately, that he would soon be sent on another mission. Ferdin remembered how similar this was to the last time they had met before a mission. He wondered if this was an opportunity, and asked, "What brings you here?" She told him that she would be joining the mission as well and wanted him to act alongside her. Ferdin was surprised to hear her say that. Meanwhile, Raymond was hiding nearby, trying to eavesdrop on their conversation. It was too far for him to hear clearly, but he kept watching. After observing her for several days, Raymond had confirmed one thing. She had indeed become skilled with a sword. In other words, it would be difficult to avoid the injuries Corellia had warned about. Earlier, Corellia had told Rayman that the Emperor would soon order the second prince to subjugate the werewolf tribe. Ferdin and his knights in training would have no choice but to deploy, and Count Leon would join them, but there would be no other support. If an accident occurred during the mission, Erin could lose an arm, and it couldn't be helped. Hiding after thinking all of this, Rayman drew his sword and muttered mockingly, "Her ladies shouldn't resent him too much. After all, she brought this upon herself."
That night in the camp, Eamon, after taking care of his horse, picked up a bucket and went back to where the others were, only to find them all staring in one direction. When he reached them, he asked in confusion what they were doing instead of getting ready for camp. Lilia turned away while Derek sighed, saying that no matter how he looked at it, they were weird. They were looking at Erin and Ferdin, who were sitting on one seat across from everyone, minding their business and arranging their subjugating tools. Eamon asked, confused, what was weird about them? Weren't they engaged, or was it strange for engaged couples to sit next to each other? Derek and Karen immediately shouted that that was exactly what was strange. A few days ago, they had been sent on another journey under Imperial command. Their mission was to subjugate the Wolfkin and rescue the refugees they had captured. The Wolfkin were a type of magical beast with some intelligence, immense strength, and a highly aggressive nature. Far too much for a mere trainee knight squad to handle. Because of this, His Imperial Majesty had dispatched one of the Empire's sword masters, Count Leon, along with knight aides Erin and her team. Presently, they were on their way to the meeting point to join Count Leon. Derek told the others he didn't expect they would get a mission so suddenly. Could it be that Erin's stepmother has a hand in this mission too? There's nothing impossible for that woman. Derek said annoyed that he still couldn't get used to seeing Erin and Ferdin together. Karen pointed out that they had been moving together since they departed, and that Derek hadn't been happy about it. He also thought to himself that it wasn't like they even had anything to say to each other. Karen gritted his teeth in anger and added that if they had no business together, then there was no need to stick together like this. So why? He lamented. Derek added that the oddly impenetrable atmosphere between them was weird too, and that it was a blessing Lady Ashili didn't see this. Eamon reminded them that her lady wasn't taking part in this mission and had already bid them farewell. Derek sighed, saying that was true. She wasn't participating in this particular mission. Lilia suddenly poked into the conversation, asking why, then, they were traveling together. "You must have heard," she said, glancing at Derek. Seeing how serious her expression was, Derek told her he didn't know either. He explained that Erin had suddenly shown up at his office offering to have a conversation with him alone, and after that talk before the mission, nothing else happened, but then suddenly they started walking together. Lilia and Derek glanced at each other, while Karen and Eamon wondered on their own what was even going on. The place fell silent. Eamon wondered why they were traveling together, and why Sir Raymond was even here. Raymond glared at Erin, who was sitting with Ferdin from behind, and Eamon noticed everything. Even before they began this mission, he had seen Raymond on different occasions monitoring and spying on them, which he found really strange. He turned to Karen and said, "Karen, didn't you say that Sir Raymond joined this mission as Erin's escort?" Karen replied, "That was right, and that Sir Ferdinando had approved of it." Eamon asked if Rayman had escorted Lady Erin when she was young as well, and Karen replied yes, adding that they were really close. "Close, you say?" Eamon asked. Karen replied, confused, that yeah, they were close, but Eamon couldn't believe the way Rayman looked at Erin was how someone close should look at her. Before he could think further, Derek suddenly panicked and said, "They're moving." Seeing Erin and Ferdin leave the seat, he lamented, "Where could they be going at such a late hour?" Derek and Karen decided to follow them, but Eamon dragged them back, saying they needed to go get ready for camp. "And they're just running off?" Derek yelled, struggling to escape, saying he was doing it for his lord's sake.
Raymond, on the other hand, kept shouting for him to let go, while Lilia watched them get dragged away without saying a word.
She glanced back, and immediately the memory of Calypsy's body flashed in her mind. She remembered how she broke down when she saw her brother's dead body, and once again she was filled with rage and a desire for revenge as she watched those two walk away. I actually feel sorry for Lilia, but she isn't trying to find out the truth of what really happened. Instead, she's just channeling her anger toward Erin. Erin and Ferdinando walked into the lonely forest, and fireflies flew around them. Erin looked at Ferdinando, was enjoying the scene before them, and thought to herself that she had practiced this 1,000 times already. Even in her past life, she had always tried and practiced to do this, but couldn't back then. In this life, she had finally found the courage. Erin called out to Ferdinando, and when he turned to her, she told him she wanted to break off their engagement. Ferdinando was shocked when he heard her say that, and Erin avoided his gaze. He asked what she was saying all of a sudden, and she replied that there was no need for him to force himself to continue an engagement he didn't want. She didn't want it either. In the dark corner, Raymond was hiding and watching them. Ferdinando asked why she wanted to get engaged to him in the first place if she was just going to break it off like this. Erin sighed and said she was sure he knew the kind of person she was, and that it had only been a momentary whim. She turned away immediately, saying she had said all she needed to say and was leaving. Ferdinando was so shocked that he tried to stop her. He reached out for her hand, but she pulled away, and he lost his grip. He stood there like a lost sheep as she disappeared without looking back. On her way, Erin thought to herself that her engagement with Lord Ferdinando had been forced by her stepmother. Regardless of her feelings toward him, she had been made to get engaged, which caused him to part from the person he loved. Too bad Erin doesn't know that Ferdinando and Lady Ashili are faking their relationship. Erin found it sad that none of them blamed her, neither in her past life nor even now. In her past life, she had been too scared of her stepmother and dragged Ferdinando down in the mud with her. But this time around, she knew what to do, and that was to hold him back from falling into the mud. Erin caught Raymond where he was hiding and asked what he was doing. He was shocked because he didn't see her coming. She glared at him angrily and asked again why he was hiding there like a mouse and spying on her. "Why are you hiding like a mouse, Raymond?" she asked. He was too shocked to speak. "I love our girl so much. She's totally different now, and it's good she spotted this mouse in time." A short while ago, Erin had told Ferdinando that he didn't have to continue the engagement, and Raymond had watched everything. He thought to himself that she was breaking off her engagement with the second prince. Had she suddenly lost her mind? He looked away with a sigh, thinking it wasn't even something she could decide on her own. He didn't know why she was always behaving so recklessly. But when he turned back, he was shocked not to see Erin anymore. She had disappeared, leaving Ferdinando alone, when she had been right there a moment ago. Just then, as Raymond turned to leave, he felt someone ambush him and immediately went on guard, only to be shocked when he saw it was Erin. She glared at him and asked why he was hiding there like a rat and spying on her. They both headed back to the camp. On the way, Raymond, who walked behind her, was confused about many things. He wondered how she had found him, and also why her expression and aura had been like that back there, even though he had hidden himself so well. That aura, it was something he had never felt in his entire life. He was sure it had been killing intent, not the kind that could be brushed off with a single word. He felt like he had come face to face with the gates of hell. Oh, wow. I love the fact that she instilled a bit of fear into him. Raymond was deeply confused. He wondered where such an aura suddenly came from. He knew it couldn't be Erin. She had just begun learning how to hold a sword, and other than the two of them, there was no one else around. He didn't sense anyone else. So could it be that this level of power was really coming from the ordinary Erin he had known since childhood? Erin suddenly spoke again, saying he still hadn't answered her. She stopped and turned to him with the same cold energy, asking why he was spying on her and Sir Ferdin. He had no choice but to reply. He said he thought she was misunderstanding something, and smiled, saying he only followed her because he was worried when he saw her and Ferdin go somewhere alone. Even though she was her fiancé, going deep into the forest like that could be dangerous. Erin asked if he had just said he was worried about her. She pointed out that he looked threatening, and that he had been holding his sword very tightly, even though it was just the two of them. Rayman quickly covered it up with a smile and put his sword back, acting shamelessly as if nothing had happened. He apologized and then called out to her, saying she had been speaking with such an ominous air and it was frightening. He asked if he had done something to upset her or if she was angry just because he followed them. He explained again that he was only worried about her because she was far too careless and trusted people easily. That was why he feared something might happen to her. Erin stayed quiet as he poured out all his nonsense. He even went on to say that Lord Ferdinando was known to be a good man, but still she shouldn't trust him too much because they had only just met. "He's not like me, so you should be careful," he said. Erin finally spoke, asking if he had just said she shouldn't trust Sir Ferdin, but trust him instead. Rayman had once been like rain in the desert to her. In a life filled with constant abuse, he had given her a little strength to endure, so she trusted him and was always grateful to him, only for him to be the one who took her life, and even told her that her family would join her. She learned that everything had been a lie from the start. Even after living through several lifetimes, she could never forget the expression she saw on his face at the end. That smiling face he had. Like, what did Bro even gain from her death to be smiling like that? She thought to herself that even though he had received orders to kill her, there was no trace of sorrow or guilt in him. Instead, it felt like he had been waiting for that moment, and the face he had worn was that of someone who was finally relieved. Till now, she keeps wondering why on earth, because she had never once treated him badly. Erin called out to Raymond and moved closer to him with a serious expression. She explained that when a blade pierces the body, it hurts because you don't die right away. Instead, you tremble in agony for a long time before death finally comes. Raymond was confused when he heard her say that. He thought to himself that something was wrong, because Erin was clearly showing hostility toward him. He didn't know what to do, so he simply smiled and said they should go back. He's scared already when she hasn't even done anything. "It's far too late. Everyone must be worried now," he said, trying to convince her to leave the place first. Erin hesitated, then suddenly turned away and agreed. Raymond exhaled in relief. Thank goodness. He followed, wondering why she was making such a face in the first place, because it felt like she was about to hit him. He concluded that Corellia should really restrain herself because she had completely made this girl strange. Watching Erin for the past 2 months, he often thought she was too different from before. Those gentle eyes that were easy to tease were gone, and instead, she now had eyes befitting a knight. But he didn't take it seriously, because Corellia was sure Erin was already far too damaged to even hold a sword. So no matter how he looked at her, she was still the same clueless, foolish, naive Erin Lysus. This guy is really the clueless one, and I want Erin to make him suffer. Rayman smiled as he watched her from behind, thinking to himself that the more she resisted, the more amusing it would be to torment her. As they walked along the path, Erin thought to herself that she didn't remember the date clearly, but she can recall a time when she and Raymond had walked together near a pond like this. Back then, she had suddenly been attacked by a stranger and fell into the pond, and Raymond had jumped in to save her. After that rescue, she lived in fear, believing someone wanted to end her life, and her distrust of people grew stronger. But now she clearly realized that there had been no stranger. It was Rayman who had pushed her into the pond, just like he was about to do now. Rayman moved behind her, about to push her, but she turned around immediately and he froze. She asked if he really thought she would meekly return to the camp. Her expression grew darker as she asked if he remembered what she told him when they first met at the academy. At that moment, Rayman knew the situation was dangerous and immediately reached for his sword, but Erin drew hers faster than him and attacked. She told him she was glad he hadn't changed at all. Those were the same words she had told him at the academy. Rayman watched her in pain, and she smiled, saying that otherwise she might have ended up forgiving him, but him still being the same only gave her more reason to never forgive him. Very foolish man. How could he even think of pushing her into that pond again? Seriously? Rayman held his arm and wondered what kind of situation this was. Originally, he had planned to push her into the pond and then save her so he could break her arrogant habits, but why had things turned out like this? Erin grabbed his mouth and asked what he was really planning to do to her, because she was sure he didn't plan to just push her into the water. She coldly asked why the Marchioness had told him to keep her from using a sword. At that moment, Rayman realized the true nature of the presence he had sensed. It was the terror of facing death. He could now tell that Erin had been hiding her skill, but he couldn't understand how she had done it. He knew he had to do something fast, or he would die in her hands right there. The moment she released her grip on his mouth, he knew this was his chance to turn things around. He immediately shouted that Corellia had ordered everything. He said the Marchioness had told him to make sure to cut off her wrists if she could use a sword, and that he only came here because he was ordered to, not because he wanted to. He held her hand sadly and said she had known him for a long time, so she should please believe him. As he said all this, Rayman concluded in his thoughts that she could never cast him aside. After all, she was still the tragic daughter of the Marquis's family, the girl who had been unloved all her life. As a young girl, wherever Erin appeared, people would point at her, saying, "She's the eldest daughter of the Marquis, the one known for throwing out maids." Every child was warned by their parents to stay away from her. Erin was a child who was more used to craving love than receiving it. Sometimes she approached those gossipers and told them she didn't do any of those things, but the more she tried to explain herself, the more people ignored her. She was a child who lived unloved. So, Rayman took advantage of that. He knew that if such a child found even the slightest bit of attention, it would overwhelm her because it was her only connection. Raymond, who had been smiling before, was shocked when Erin told him he would die by her hands today. He shouted that it was all Corellia's order and had nothing to do with him, but Erin told him she had already planned this from the moment she saw him at the academy. Why else would she have come this far for him? Besides, she already knew his plan to throw her into the pond, then save her, win her over, and make her believe he was the only one for her. Hearing her say all that, Raymond was completely shocked. He tried to explain that she was mistaken and that it was all Corellia's plan. She had ordered him to do everything. But Erin wasn't buying it. Seeing that she had made up her mind, he begged her to spare him, saying he was unarmed and that it wasn't right for a knight to attack someone who had no weapon. He reminded her that she always said killing would send one to hell, and that if she did this, she would fall straight into hell. Erin sighed and said that was right. She still believed in heaven and hell. In her first life, she had been so naive. She believed that being kind would take her to heaven. She always wished and prayed to stay kind, so she could make it to heaven and meet Titi again, even if it meant following all her mother's orders. She had been a naive girl who, even at the end, tried not to hate anyone. Erin, with a sad voice, told Rayman that she had begged him too. She pleaded for her life. She clung to his feet, begging him to let her go. Even though her life had been miserable, she still wanted to survive. But he pretended not to hear her. Raymond was completely confused and asked what she was talking about. Before he could understand anything, she raised her sword and told him she would never meet Titi again. And before he knew it, she slaughtered him the same way he had slaughtered her in her past life. She whispered in his ear as he gave up, telling him to go ahead and wait for her. She pulled out her sword, and he fell before her. Erin told him that when everything was over, they would meet again in hell. He died without even knowing that she had lived this life before, which was the very reason he died. Back at the camp, Ferdin suddenly showed up shouting that something terrible had happened. The others were confused and asked what he was talking about, since they had just been discussing going to look for him. "She's gone," Ferdin said. "What?" Erin asked Derek who he was talking about. He replied in fear that Lady Erin had disappeared. "What?" They all shouted in shock at the same time. Ferdin explained that she had been with him just moments ago and suddenly said she would go ahead first. Before he knew it, she vanished without a trace. The other knights came out of their tents wondering what was going on. Ferdin was restless and worried. He told them he had searched everywhere but couldn't find her. He even asked Derek to wake everyone so they could go look for her, but Derek stopped him and told him to calm down. Ferdin yelled, asking how was he supposed to calm down when Erin had gone missing? "I'm right here, Sir Ferdinand," Erin said from a corner. She walked out of her tent and Ferdin rushed over to her, asking when she had returned. She explained that she had told him she would go ahead, and after that she simply returned to her tent. He thanked goodness and was about to grab her hand, but she pulled away, saying he didn't have to worry about her and that she wasn't going anywhere. The rest were confused and watched the scene unfold. They even wondered if the two of them had fought for her to behave like that toward him. Derek held on to Ferdin and said he had heard her clearly. She said she wasn't going anywhere, so he should go inside. Ferdin told everyone to go rest since she was back, and Derek instructed Karen to handle the cleaning.
Erin watched them and thought to herself that even in the past Ferdin had worried about her like this. He had told her that no matter what, he would never believe she was the one behind Calips's death because she would never take an innocent person's life. She had been surprised when he said the Erin he knew would never do such a thing, and that even if she didn't want to talk about it, he would always help her. Poor Erin doesn't know that Ferdin has the power of seeing, and he has already seen how miserable her life is. That's why he treats her like this. Up till now, Erin could remember that she never confessed the whole truth to Ferdin. By the time she was finally ready, he was no longer in this world.
After stabbing Rayman, he had told her she could never be loved all her life. He didn't even know what had happened to her, but he was sure she would never live the same way again, because she was now a murderer. Erin threw his body into a cave, saying she didn't care. Watching him lie lifeless on the ground, she thought to herself that she didn't mind if Sir Ferdin despised her. She didn't care if people called her a villainess with a merciless hand. She was already used to that hatred. But if anyone ever threatened Sir Ferdin and the Order, she would become a demon as many times as it took. Indeed, villains are really not born. Everyone turned her into a villain. The next morning, they were already packing up their tents to leave, and Erin was done packing her things. Karen called out to her, and she looked back. He asked if he had seen Sir Rayman by any chance, but she replied that she hadn't. He complained that they were about to depart soon and still didn't know where he had gone. His tent was empty and his horse was gone too, he added, scratching his head. Oops. Too bad no one even noticed he was missing since last night. Late that night, Erin had gone into Rayman's room and packed all his belongings onto his horse, then sent it away. That was why both his things and his horse were gone, making it look like he had left on his own. Erin and Karen turned when they heard someone ask what was going on. It was Ferdin. He asked if Sir Rayman had really vanished. Karen replied yes. He said he had checked his belongings and his horse, and none of them were anywhere to be found. He added that Rayman must have returned to the Marquis's estate ahead of them. Ferdin frowned and asked how he could even do that without the commander's permission, which was very uncommon. He then turned to Erin and asked if she had heard whether Rayman had any urgent business or something. But Erin replied that she hardly ever spoke with him. Derek came from behind and suggested they just leave. After all, Rayman was a high-ranking knight, so surely nothing could happen to him, especially since there wasn't even a low-class beast in this area. Hearing all this, Eamon told to himself that it was better that way, because Rayman's looks and manners had been upsetting him all along. Looking at Erin, he thought that even setting aside Sir Rayman's conduct, it was hard to place any trust in the people of House Lysus. For someone to dare do such things to a noble lady's body, it would have to be an insider, not an outsider. Eamon glanced at Karen and excluded him from the suspects, since he lacked both ruthlessness and cruelty. Karen wondered why Eamon was suddenly looking at him, and Eamon told them that since Rayman's belongings were gone, there was no way to suspect an accident. That meant he most likely returned to the Marquis's estate. Ferdin couldn't say anything more because they reminded him that they were already pressed for time to reach the rendezvous point. Once they left the safe zone, beasts would start appearing. Losing a high-ranking knight at this point was a blow to their strength, but delaying the mission to search for one escort would also be a loss. Ferdin asked Karen and Erin if they should really depart without searching for Rayman. Karen immediately replied that if Lord Ferdin had already made his decision, he would follow. After all, the mission came first. Erin agreed as well, and in the end they concluded to depart. They wouldn't have concluded this so easily if it was Erin who had gone missing like this. Serves Rayman right. He brought it upon himself. Ferdin shouted for everyone to prepare to move out, and they all answered, yes, sir. Erin picked up her bag, thinking in relief that she had been worried they would dig deeper into Rayman's disappearance, but it all passed smoothly. Before she knew it, Ferdin took her bag from her and carried it for her, leaving her shocked. He glanced at her and asked if she would ride at his side again today.
She replied surprised that she had planned on switching places with Derek, but Ferdin immediately asked her to stay by his side. These two should really get along well. Ferdin reminded her that she was the one who had suggested staying close throughout the mission in the first place. Erin didn't know what to say anymore and just allowed him to do his thing. They began a long, grueling march. The moment they left the safe zone, they faced beasts both large and small. The closer they drew to Wolfkin territory, the scarier things became, and to make matters worse, the weather suddenly turned. Ferdin urged them to push forward despite the rain, saying there was an inn ahead. At that moment, even a well-trained knight couldn't help but feel weary. They finally arrived at the inn, and everyone sat down and was served good food. Eamon exclaimed that they were finally having proper food for the first time in 10 days. He rubbed his shoulders, complaining about how worn out he felt. Erin looked around and thought to herself that she agreed with Eamon. She could see that everyone was exhausted. She knew that from tomorrow they would reach the mountain paths and have to leave their horses behind, which made her worry whether everyone would be able to manage.
In the past, she had never joined the wolf subjugation and never knew what they went through there. All she knew was that Sir Ferdin returned with a grievous wound, and everyone else avoided speaking about what they experienced. With her arms folded, she felt she wanted to ask what happened so badly, but she couldn't bring herself to ask people who haven't lived through it in the first place. Eamon asked if she was all right, and she sighed. He told her that she had been sparring with Philip's men whenever there was time along the way. She remembered dueling with the other knights to the point that they wanted to win so badly, but of course, none of them could beat her, and Eamon had watched everything in confusion. At this point, all I can say is that Eamon is her biggest fan. Eamon told her that all her strength and stamina were ironically fragile, so she should be careful. Erin smiled and asked if he was worrying about her. "I never thought Sir Eamon had this side," she said. He replied that she shouldn't get used to it because it only happens rarely. He even added that people say all kinds of things when they're exhausted, so she should conserve her strength until they enter Wolfkin territory, because no one knows what awaits them there. Eamon thought to himself that this mission was the Emperor's way of tormenting Ferdin from the start. He always gave Ferdin what was hardest to endure. Seeing Eamon's expression, Erin could tell he was troubled, so she decided to keep his words in mind. Erin accidentally knocked over the cup of water beside her and stood up immediately, but it splashed onto her trousers. At that moment, Ferdin and Derek, along with Karen, who had gone to tend to the horses outside, walked in. Derek complained that the rain was pouring like it was going to drown them. Ferdin looked ahead and saw Eamon helping Erin by offering her his handkerchief. He smiled and asked if she was all right. She smiled back and said he had been asking her that a lot lately. From that angle, the two of them looked close. There goes another misunderstanding. Ferdin remembered Erin asking to annul their betrothal, and he was suddenly filled with rage. Derek asked why he was standing there dazed instead of going to eat. Karen and Derek joined Erin and Eamon, and they started arguing about losing a rock-paper-scissors game and ending up in the rain. Ferdin tried to concentrate, telling himself to stop thinking about useless things, and instead focus on making sure everyone returned home safely. He joined the others and sat beside Erin. He pointed out that Lilia was nowhere to be seen. Karen and Derek were already eating their food when Ferdin asked if anyone had seen her. Little did they know, Lilia had other plans and was preparing herself magically. This girl is really unpredictable. What could she be planning now? When Calypsy died, Lilia found out after a maid serving the Marquis of Lysus came over and asked if she was Calypsy's hister. The maid brought the news along with her brother's body. Not only that, she also gave her a bag of coins, saying it would be enough for the burial. The maid mockingly told her that all of this was Madame's fault for not being able to control her daughter. Till now, Lilia still kept one coin from that bag. She held it tightly, thinking about how they could take a life without a second thought and even laugh about it. Every time she saw Erin laughing, she felt pain in her heart and thought to herself that Erin should laugh all she wanted for now. In the dark, someone approached her and asked if she wanted to take revenge for Calypsy that badly. The person said they would help her. Lilia, filled with pain, lamented that Erin wouldn't be able to laugh later. 1 week later, the team finally arrived at the meeting place they were told about. They all stared at the ruined cave before them. Ferdin thought to himself that at least they arrived on time. They even had to leave their horses behind since they were hiking. Ferdin ordered Derek to tell everyone to rest until the meeting time. Night fell, and everywhere was dark. The only light came from the stars in the sky. Standing at a corner, Ferdin felt that something was wrong. Count Leon hadn't arrived. Derek came to him and reported that the meeting time had passed, and Count Leon was not someone who would be late. Ferdin told him it was obvious Count Leon wasn't coming at all. It could be that the Emperor had planned all this to throw them into danger, since coming here was an order from the Imperial Palace. Ferdin said His Majesty must have a reason, and Derek replied that he was sure he did. "I didn't expect it to go this way. What do you want to do next, Ferdin?" Derek asked. Ferdin told him they would turn back, because there was no way they could face the Wolfkin on their own. Derek sighed, saying he understood his intention, but he was against returning empty-handed. At the very least, they should send a search party nearby. He added that they were already in Wolfkin territory and should make some effort. Derek whispered to Ferdin that he didn't trust His Majesty's knights. There could be a spy among them. The two glanced at the knights who were sitting comfortably asking why Count Leon hadn't arrived. Derek told Ferdin that if they returned without doing anything, he was sure they would blame him.
Ferdin thought to himself that Derek was also suspecting the knights as spies. He wasn't ignorant of it either. He also knew that if they returned like this, his father would hold not only him, but his entire team responsible. Looking at Erin, Eamon, Karen, and the rest, he had no choice but to tell Derek to send a search party. Derek was glad, but Ferdin added there was a condition. Derek's smile vanished immediately. From afar, Erin was watching them and wondering what was going on. For Ferdin and Derek to speak in such low voices that even her sharp hearing couldn't catch anything was strange. A search party was organized into 4 teams and sent to investigate the werewolf territory. They were told to prioritize safety above all else. But when everyone returned, Ferdin regretted his decision. Not everyone came back. Eamon and Lilia were kidnapped. Ferdin shouted in anger, asking what they meant. One of the knights explained that they were returning when they were suddenly attacked. Eamon and Lilia told them to run, saying they would hold off the enemy. Erin knew that to the werewolf tribe, a magician like Lilia is someone they would never let escape, because they had no magicians among them. She wondered why this happened, because it didn't happen in the past. They were all injured back then, but Eamon and Lilia were never kidnapped. She wondered if it was because she had changed too many futures. Could that be why fate itself was unraveling? On top of that, everyone was in panic. Even at full strength, it was hard to face the werewolves. In this state, it was nearly impossible to rescue any hostages. But one thing was certain. Erin had already made up her mind to go save them. She glanced at Ferdin, wondering what he would do. She wondered if it was safer to take him along or leave him behind. Just then, Erin saw a spear flying through the air. She immediately pushed Ferdin aside, and the spear struck a tree instead. They both fell to the ground, and everyone was shocked, wondering what was happening. Derek turned around and froze. They had been found by the werewolf tribe. The knights explained that they had been chased while returning from the search. That was probably how the werewolves found this place. Derek was right. These knights are really suspicious. Could it be they set Lilia and Eamon up and even led the werewolves here too? Ferdin, Derek, and Erin were ready to attack as the werewolves came forward. Ferdin shouted for everyone to take a defensive stance, and they did, but the wolves kept getting more aggressive. Erin told them things were getting messier. She thought to herself that the werewolves were 10 in number and didn't seem very strong, but if they fought them here, with their sharp hearing, more werewolves from deeper inside the territory would come to help. Most of the knights were already in panic. Even if they fought, casualties were inevitable, so retreating was the best option. Ferdin shouted for everyone to run, and they all turned around, helping the injured knights escape, while Erin and Ferdin blocked the werewolves. Erin knew this wasn't enough. They needed to be lured away so everyone could escape safely. Out of nowhere, the werewolves were hit on the head by something. When they looked at what hit them, it was coins. Erin, who was behind the attack, called out to them while playing with the coins in her hands, telling them to come at her. The werewolves became furious and started roaring. Erin ran in the opposite direction, and they all chased after her. Ferdin, seeing all the werewolves chase Erin, couldn't run away. He called out to her, but they were too fast. He turned to Derek and told them to go first. Derek called out to him as he ran in the direction of the wolves, reminding him of their promise and telling him to make sure he kept it. Karen turned to Derek, asking him to take care of the wounded knights. He was about to run after Ferdin, but Derek grabbed him. Karen begged him to let him go help his sister and Lord Ferdin and bring them back at all costs. But Derek told him that taking care of the wounded knights came first. Earlier, when Ferdin agreed to send the search parties, he had given one condition. The condition was that if anything happened to him, Derek must make sure that he and the other knights escaped safely. Derek told Karen that Sir Ferdin had entrusted him with the safety of everyone, and he would follow that order, so Karen had to stay too. Karen couldn't go against the order and frowned angrily. Erin, who had lured all the werewolves away, had already killed 9 of them. Only one was left, and he was trembling in fear. As Erin walked closer, the werewolf asked if she was even human. Erin raised her sword, and the wolf thought he was about to die. But when he closed his eyes, he felt no pain. He opened his eyes in confusion and wondered why she wasn't attacking him.
Erin noticed the fireflies around and realized someone was chasing after her. Using her ability, she could tell it was Sir Ferdin. She wondered why he followed her all the way here. He hadn't seen her yet, so she turned back to the werewolf and told him she wouldn't kill him. She said she needed him to send a message to their chief, that if even a single hair on the hostages' heads was harmed, he should prepare for the consequences. The werewolf felt the threat in her words and ran away in fear. Erin watched him leave, then turned around as she sensed Ferdin coming and moved in his direction. Ferdin was still looking for her. He saw footprints and knelt down to observe them. He was sure they belonged to Erin and the werewolves. He knew he was heading deeper into their territory and shouldn't be here. But his mother, who was a saintess, could see the future and hear the voice of the goddess. She once told him that the lives of many people rested on his shoulders, so he had to live.
Before she died, his mother broke a rule and gave him a prophecy. She said that even if life became unbearable, he must survive at all costs. That became the principle of his life, no matter what. It was one of the reasons he endured this hellish life until now. He knew werewolves were famous for never letting intruders escape. If he fought them alone, he probably wouldn't come back alive. He might even be captured and become a burden to the Empire. Chasing Erin made no logical sense, but when he saw her luring the werewolves away, something inside him told him to follow her. He felt that if he didn't, he would regret it forever. Ferdin took out a necklace, a keepsake from his mother, and prayed for her to help him meet Erin safely. Just then, he heard Erin call his name. He turned around in shock and saw her approaching. From afar, she asked him why he was there. Seriously? Is she asking such a dumb question? Of course your prince is here to find you, can't you see? Just seeing her made Ferdin relieved. She was safe. He assumed she had escaped the werewolves. He was shocked when Erin told him to go back. He asked what she meant and where she was planning to go. She walked away saying she had something she needed to do. He followed her and said it couldn't be what he was thinking. "Are you trying to save Lilia and Eamon all alone?" he shouted. She went silent. From her silence, he knew that was exactly her plan. She had no intention of turning back. Seeing that, he walked up to her and told her they should go together. She was surprised. He smiled and said if she had something to do, then they would do it together. She shouldn't think of going alone. Erin thought to herself that he still worried about her this much because he didn't know she was a sword master. Normally, a knight entering werewolf territory alone would be considered reckless or insane. She had expected Ferdin to try and force her to leave. She had even planned to convince him to return safely while she stayed behind. But instead, he wanted to go with her. She realized it might actually be better. Even in such a dangerous situation, being next to her, a sword master, was ironically the safest place for him. She agreed to move with him, but told him she had something to say. She glared at him and reminded him that he was the second prince of the Empire, so if anything dangerous happened, he should let her handle it first. Ferdin was surprised, then nodded. He told him he understood. "I doubt he'd stand by and watch you take any blow in the name of being the prince." Ferdin thought to himself, he didn't intend to put her ahead of everything, but if he didn't agree to this now, she wouldn't agree to let him follow her. They began moving, and of course, Erin led the way. As they went deeper into the forest, it was literally just one narrow path. They came across werewolves and hid until they passed. They finally reached the werewolf settlement where Eamon and Lilia were being held, and Ferdin began whispering to her. He asked her to rest a little so she could regain her strength, and she agreed. When night fell and the full moon was out, Ferdin told her they could avoid the werewolf's sight and take a short rest. Ferdin glanced at her as she sat quietly, then asked why she came this far into the territory just to save the two of them. "Hey, they're not just anyone. It's Eamon we're talking about here. She should please save her fan." Erin glared at him and said she had a debt to repay. By debt, she literally meant Lilia, and Eamon too. He has sacrificed for her, hasn't he? Ferdin asked what she meant by debt, and she replied by asking why he came himself. He should have just sent another knight instead. Hearing that, Ferdin felt like everything was happening too fast and he couldn't even process it. He sighed and said that after all, Lilia and Eamon came here because of him, and she too, so he couldn't just let everyone keep sacrificing themselves for him. He told her that as long as he was in this territory, Lilia and Eamon wouldn't die, even if he got captured instead of them, because of his status, they wouldn't take his life.
Erin watched him silently. Suddenly, he looked sad and said it was strange, that he felt something familiar. He knelt before her and said it felt like he was forgetting something. With fireflies all around them, he reached out and touched her cheeks, telling her there was something important. She wondered if he had used his ability to see her past. In the past, Erin had learned very late about his special ability. She wondered what exactly he saw about her. Was it her past lives, or did he see the tragic future where he dies because of her? Erin began trembling and didn't know what to do. Ferdin quickly pulled his hands back when they heard a noise behind them. He drew his sword and slashed through the grass, only to find a pink rabbit. It was a low-level magical beast, an herbivore and harmless to humans. Ferdin was surprised and relieved at the same time. The rabbit ran away and he turned to Erin immediately, asking if she was all right. He leaned close to her and said he might have been a bit rough earlier. They both looked into each other's eyes in silence. Ferdin wondered since when things had started feeling like this. Was it after the beast hunt? Dame Erin often looked at him with a sad gaze. Having lived long as the second prince, he was used to admiration and courtship, so he accepted her gaze too. But what puzzled him was that her gaze was different from everyone else's, and it drew his attention. Erin quickly looked away and apologized. She was shocked when he blocked her path again. In his mind, he tried to understand the emotions in her eyes without putting them into words. Then Ferdin asked her why she broke off their engagement, because he didn't want to break ways with her. Is this him confessing and saying he doesn't want to break up with her? And why did he keep calling her Dame? Only after graduating from the Academy's swordsmanship division do students officially become knights, and they still call one another Sir and Dame. It was a respectful title among knights. Everyone else scorned her and called her by her full name, but only one person properly addressed her as a knight-to-be and gave her full respect, and that was Sir Ferdin. With the same kind eyes he used to look at her with in her past life, she wondered why he was doing all this when he didn't even like her. She felt like he was making her mistake his respect for feelings. Just then, they heard a scream and turned toward the sound. They peeked and saw a wolf shouting at a little boy who was trying to run away. The wolves caught him and laughed as one of them lifted him up. Erin could tell the child was a refugee captured by the werewolves, and his face looked familiar, like she had seen him before. The boy cried as they handled him roughly, begging to be let go. Suddenly, fire burst out of his body and burned one of the wolves, leaving it screaming in pain. That was when Erin remembered where she had seen this. In her first life, a few years later, the empire was invaded by the wolf tread, and many people died because the wolves put a boy on the front lines. He was a mage who could freely use fire, and there were rumors he was a refugee child captured earlier. Seeing this now, Erin realized those rumors were true. But there was a difference. Back then, the boy was said to be blind. This time, he could still see. His eyes were wide open as the werewolves approached him. The wolf whose arm was burned grabbed him angrily and was about to take out his eyes for daring to burn him. This is crazy! So she's here before he goes blind. Ferdin and Erin watched as they tried to hold him down, saying that if he could see, he would keep trying to escape. Ferdin and Erin jumped in immediately. Ferdin moved to rescue the boy, while Erin attacked the werewolves. This is really getting more and more interesting. Erin is changing the future, and I'm so glad she saved this boy from losing his sight. This is where this part of the story ends. If you love this story and you want us to continue, please comment the protagonist's name, Erin Lysus.